Entertainment begins with a journey. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Cinema. The road wasn't the bluestone paving common in ancient towns, but rather a path reminiscent of the countryside, a mix of dirt and stone. It was hard and solid, the dirt and stone tightly woven together, giving it a dark hue. One could imagine how long this road had stood, how many generations of pedestrians had trampled on it. Some houses still had doors that were decades or even centuries old, while others had been renovated, reinforced, and replaced with roller shutters on the first floor. Among the shops, there were tailors working on sewing machines, and tea houses with wooden chairs and a television in the back. Some elderly men were playing mahjong, a game Yukai couldn't even understand. After walking for an indeterminate amount of time, Yukai heard a movie playing in the house ahead. He caught a familiar line, "Happy New Year, brother and sister-in-law. There's a movie theater here." Even with his eyes closed, Yukai could guess the movie's title. The line was incredibly famous. Yukai followed the sound towards the cinema. A familiar voice echoed over the speakers. Ma Dazan smiled and said, "How come you don't have anything nice to say about this compliment?" A curtain blocked the view of the crowd outside. A young man in a school uniform was sitting outside, yawning and playing a mobile game. Seeing Yukai trying to go in, he stopped him and said, "5 yuan." Yukai asked, "Can I scan WeChat?" The young man became more enthusiastic towards Yukai, tapping his phone to collect the payment and smiling. "Yes, yes." He scanned the 5 yuan and went inside. The layout was similar to the tea house he had just seen. Of course, there was a large white screen at the front, and a projector at the end of the lobby. Someone was sitting next to the projector, watching the movie intently. In front of him were several rows of auditorium seats. Wooden chairs, each capable of seating 4 people, were arranged in 3 rows, 7 or 8 lines, and were sparsely populated with about 10 people. Most of them were elderly people, teacups in hand. Not most, but almost everyone here was just as Yukai had described, holding teacups of various shapes, cigarettes, or even pipes dangling from their lips. The entire theater was filled with a pungent smell of leaf tobacco. Yukai found a seat in the back, avoiding them, and joined them in watching the film. Yukai had only seen this kind of film in elementary school, and he wondered if elementary schools would offer such movie viewings now. His most profound memory of that film wasn't the plot, but the joy of sharing snacks with the children who ushered him in. The projectionist sat down next to Yukai, glanced at him, and asked, "I haven't seen young people here in a while. You must be the first in the past 2 years, right? How old are you?" Yukai turned to look at him. He was in his 40s or 50s, relatively thin, wearing a blue t-shirt and light-colored jeans. His skin was a bit tanned, and his main job was unclear. "You're 24 this year. Are you a projectionist?" "Yes." "Is showing films like this still profitable?" Yukai asked the question he longed to know. Movies played on this ancient machine certainly weren't the latest releases. Most were, like this one, 10 or even 20 years old. But movies like that were either already seen or not wanted to be seen. Before entering, Yukai hadn't expected so many people here. Yes, a dozen or so people was a lot. Before entering, Yukai hadn't expected so many people to watch a movie that cost 5 yuan. Making money. He looked at Yukai in confusion, then suddenly realized, "Did that guy charge you?" "I don't charge for showing movies here. I'll pay you whatever you paid." No, it's not much." Yukai shook his head. It was just a few yuan. Nowadays, no place charges a few yuan for movies. The cheapest movie costs 20 yuan. If he showed movies for free, then the venue fees and equipment maintenance costs would be a huge amount. "No, I said I won't charge, so I won't." No matter how much he tried to persuade the old man, Yukai couldn't change his mind. He took the 5 yuan he gave him and put it in his wallet. Seeing the uncle's angry expression, the child would probably be scolded when they got home that evening. This action struck Yukai as a very simple person. After discussing a few dollars with Yukai for so long, the elderly men in front of them all thought the story behind it was more exciting than what was on the screen, and they all turned to look at the two of them. After collecting the money, Yukai said, "If you don't charge admission, wouldn't it be completely free? Although this place is quite remote, it still costs a lot, right?" This house is ours, so we don't have to rent it. Showing old movies is a personal hobby of mine, just like young people like playing games these days. It's a personal hobby of mine, right? A hobby, sort of. As for projectionists, this profession had its heyday, but it's gradually declining with the advancement of technology. There's a popular movie called Cinema Paradiso. Near the end of the movie, there's a scene about editing. At the time, society didn't allow overly intimate scenes in films, so the old projectionist edited them out, creating a sweet compilation that will make single people jealous. Seeing this scene, many children of that generation dreamed of becoming projectionists when they grew up. Judging by this older man's age, he was likely one of those influenced by this film. Watching a movie in a theater, even in such a Spartan, even dimly lit environment, is more comfortable than watching it at home on a computer. Yukai sat slightly in front of the projector. Above him was a beam of light, carrying the dreams of a generation, constantly shifting, reflecting the dust in the air and projecting the image onto the screen. The visuals were stunning. If you've seen this movie, you'll know that it doesn't really require high-quality image quality. What matters is the atmosphere. This kind of movie is perfect for quiet viewing on the big screen. Yukai had seen it several times before, both on his phone and on his computer, but it was here, in a free theater, that he felt such a profound connection to it. Yukai didn't know the older man's name yet. Having shown movies for so many years, he'd probably seen the film countless times, yet he still watched it with such intensity, silently reciting lines when he found a scene he liked. As he left the theater, Yukai lifted the curtain that had been erected to block out the light. The light shone brightly, and the bustling streets returned instantly. Of course, a layer of cloth curtains could not block the noise in the street, but when watching a movie inside, I didn't feel how noisy it was outside at all. It might be because I was too immersed in it. I don't know where the boy in school uniform ran off to. The uncle closed the door and walked away without saying a word. His expression was just like a parent who went to the internet cafe to arrest someone. It was extremely scary. P.S. My grades have been declining recently, coupled with some turmoil, and the fact that I no longer have perfect attendance, which has caused Keiichi to let go of myself and give up on myself. I reflect on this. I went home late at night and finished this chapter at 2:30 in the morning to make up for yesterday. I reflect again. I am very sorry for the readers who have always supported me in the recent updates. Today, some friends gave me rewards. Thank you so much. I will definitely pay back the chapters I owe. I hope you will continue to support me. With the current results, I really can't afford to lose any more friends. Chapter 227. What scenery is there in the mountain? Guizhou Province is known for its many mountains and unique landscapes. After spending a night in the city, the two set out from the small town the next day. The car stopped at an intersection. The road had been closed due to a mudslide the previous winter. After asking nearby residents, they parked the car and followed a path through the mountains. This path was the only way out for the villagers. The guide said that if they followed it, they would see their destination once they emerged from the forest. Yukai was no stranger to mountain climbing, but Luo Zhangjiang was less active. He didn't walk far before he felt exhausted and sat down on a rock to rest. Brother Yi, that mudslide has been blocking the road for a year. Why hasn't it been cleared yet? It's too much trouble to have to travel this mountain road all the time. Isn't it tiring? Yikai, picking wild mulberries from the mountains, said, this shows that the villagers living in the mountains don't have any need for cars, and local officials won't spend a fortune to open up such a worthless road. This county was already poor enough, and even the county seat was in a state of disrepair. How could there be any extra money? After 2 days here, Yukai saw no thriving industries. With no mainstay industries and livelihoods reliant solely on traditional farming, how could they possibly become wealthy? Those mulberries are sweet, come and have some. Yukai asked. Luo Zhangjiang wasn't interested. He rubbed his legs and stood up, saying, I don't like them. Let's get going, or we'll have to stay in the mountains tonight. The sunlight was bright, and the mulberries were sweet. If there were a bag, Yukai wouldn't mind picking some to eat on the way. He washed his hands with mineral water and continued on his way. Exhausted, Luo Zhangjiang was filled with negative energy, complaining to Yukai the entire way. When I joined this association, I always thought I'd be going to Africa to protect lions, the Arctic to see polar bears, and catch illegal poachers. Who knew I'd end up in a place like this? Yukai hadn't expected to be asked to come to China this time. Perhaps because he was Chinese, Rachel had sent people out twice but couldn't get any results. But because of the real name report, she had assigned Ye Kai to this operation. But this was no small matter. Black bears are a Class II protected species in China, a Class I protected species internationally under CITES, and are also listed as endangered by the Wildlife Conservation Association. Internationally, black bears are protected on the same level as giant pandas. Rachel had received so many emails reporting them, some of which required real name submissions, which naturally gave her a headache. So she asked Ye Kai, a local, to handle the matter. Ye Kai himself held a high rank within the association, so a perfect resolution would be a major accomplishment. Animals abroad are protected, but aren't ours not? And getting out and about wouldn't hurt. It'll give you some exercise, Luo Zhangjiang retorted. I have a workout too. After an hour's walk, the mountainside gradually opened up, and a small stream appeared ahead, flowing down from the high mountains to the right. The water was clear, leaving streaks of whitecaps in the fast-flowing areas. Years of erosion had covered the rocks at the stream's bottom with moss, connecting the previously individual stones into a single mass. From a distance, it looked like a green dragon lying at the stream's bottom. Are we there yet? Luo Zhangjiang asked. We haven't reached the end of the road yet, but we should be almost there. It looks like we've already gone downhill. But as they continued walking, they realized how naive their previous thoughts were. Ye Kai had thought they had already gone downhill, but in fact, they had indeed gone down a mountain. But it wasn't over yet. Following the road, further in, the mountain slopes closed up, revealing another road downhill. From the moment they abandoned the car and walked, it took them over 2 hours before they saw the main road, fields, brick houses, and villagers. Finally, they had arrived. Luo Zhangjiang sighed, took out his phone, checked the time, and said, "We've been walking for almost 3 hours, Brother Yi. This is exhausting. Be content. Going to Africa is even harder. Do you have a signal?" Luo Zhangjiang checked his phone again and said, "Yes, we should be able to make a call." Just then, an old farmer carrying a sickle passed by. Seeing the two unfamiliar faces, he hesitated for a long time before walking up and asking, "Who are you looking for?" Few people came here to begin with, and even fewer had come since the main road disappeared. This mountain road out takes more than an hour for villagers to walk out, and it takes 2 or 3 hours for city people to walk here. So in this situation, the old farmer hasn't seen any strangers here for a long time. We're wild. Ye Kai said quickly, we're tourists here. Someone told us we could see beautiful scenery by following this mountain road. Scenic spots. The old farmer said with amusement. You've been tricked. There's no scenery in this mountain. Why would you walk in here when there's no road? Go back. I have some free time anyway, so I might as well take a stroll. Is there a place to eat? I'm hungry after walking for so long. No, you can come to my place if you don't mind. It's nothing special, though. Ye Kai smiled and said, okay. The old man nodded and walked ahead. Ye Kai grabbed Luo Zhangjiang and whispered, don't tell anyone what we're here for. Call Rachel and ask who the informant is. We'll go find him directly. Luo Zhangjiang replied quietly, oh. This place wasn't actually that remote. There used to be a road here that could be used for traffic, but it hadn't been cleared yet. It was only a matter of time before the road was reopened. The mudslide couldn't keep it blocked forever. So there is a main road in the village, and most of the villagers live near this road. Ye Kai went down 2 mountains along the way, and here he is at the bottom of the mountain. It is a relatively large plain area, more suitable for living. In the distance is a not very steep mountain. The villagers have cultivated fields on the mountain and formed beautiful terraces. Because of the different things planted, they look colorful and very beautiful. Who said there are no beautiful scenery? Isn't this one? The geography of your province belongs to the plateau mountainous area. There is a saying that there are 8 mountains, 1 water, and 1 field. It is the only province in the country without plains to support it. However, ancient China was an agricultural civilization. How to solve this geographical problem? That is to rely on such terraces. At a glance, the whole mountain is a field, some planted, some not planted. In the reflection of the sunlight, the water in the terraces reflects the sun's rays, as if there are dozens of suns. Luo Zhangjiang was stunned. He has been studying abroad since he was a child and has never seen such a scenery. Don't say you are surprised by something you haven't seen before. Even if you know that China has such terrain from videos and pictures, how can it be as shocking as seeing it with your own eyes? Even if you have seen some terraced fields in the countryside, have you ever seen an entire mountain covered in terraced fields? Chapter 228 Yuli. The old man's family consists of 5 people. The eldest and second sons have moved out, and they live with their third son and his wife, along with their 8-year-old granddaughter. Upon returning home, the old man asked his wife to cut some bacon. He then took out a bottle of baijiu that his eldest son had recently given him, saying, "We don't have any great dishes at home, please don't be offended." Luo Zhengang, new to society and somewhat uninitiated, remained polite and smiled. Hearing this, he replied, "No, these dishes are quite good. They're quite good. You wouldn't get this much for 200 or 300 yuan out there," Yukai said. Farmhouse food in the city is always expensive. It's fine to buy and cook it yourself, but at restaurants specializing in farmhouse cuisine, the same dishes can cost 30% to 50% more than at other restaurants. There were originally 4 dishes, but the couple added 3 more after they arrived home. The table was full and looked quite feasting. During the meal, Luo Zhengyang's phone rang. He saw the message and nodded to Yukai, who then knew the informant had been found. The old man's son asked curiously, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Hong Kong Island. Sichuan Province." "Hong Kong Island? Oh my." The old man tutted his lips and picked up his wine glass. "I've never met anyone from Hong Kong Island in my life. I heard Hong Kong Island is incredibly beautiful. What's it like?" Luo Zhengyang said, "Actually, it's all the same now, not much better than the provincial capital here. If we're talking about modernization, Hong Kong Island is better than your province, but as for scenery, sorry, compared to your province, Hong Kong Island doesn't have much natural beauty. Putting aside the fields, just a view from that mountain road into the mountains, surrounded by a stream, with a mountain scenery reflected in the stream, is actually a breathtaking sight. Things look different from different angles. Perhaps when they go to Hong Kong Island and see the skyscrapers, they'll feel the same beauty and awe that Luo Zhengyang felt when he saw the terraced fields." After thanking the family, the two of them walked out. Luo Zhengyang caught up with Yukai and asked, "Are we just leaving like this? Without paying? I've got 100 yuan under my bowl. Was that Rachel who just texted you? Who's the informant?" 100 yuan was just right. A meal like this would have cost a couple of hundred. The most urgent thing now wasn't eating, but finding the informant. Otherwise, who would know where the illegal factories here were? A map could mark the location of a village, but not the specific location of a factory. Luo Zhengyang pulled out his phone and read to Yukai, "The informant is Yu Li from Fangshu village, Weining. The contact number is 153. He then took out his phone and dialed. It was already noon, and if they didn't get down to business, it would be 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and they wouldn't be able to get out. Staying in the woods at night was just plain boring, so they had to stay here for the night. "Does anyone know if there's a place to stay here?" As the call was connected, a young male voice came from the other end, saying, "Hello, this is Yuli." "Hello, my name is Yukai. Is this a convenient time for you to answer the phone?" There was a pause, then the other end said, "Yes, who are you?" "Well, we're from WPSA. We found this place based on the information you left on the website, but we don't know the exact location." "Oh, you're here. Where are you? I'll come find you." Yukai looked around. There weren't any landmarks here. Since he had a signal, Yukai said, "How about we add each other on WeChat and share our location? I don't know where we are right now." Sure. Thanks for your hard work." After adding their friend, they waited for about 10 minutes in a seemingly deserted house, watching the two avatars on the small map on their phone get closer and closer. It was called a map, but it was actually blank, with only the two avatars visible. "Are we there yet?" Luo Zhengyang checked Yukai's phone. "We're almost there." A man wearing round, rimless glasses approached on a motorcycle from a distance. Seeing the two unfamiliar faces, he said, "Hello, it's me, Yuli. Which of you is Yukai?" Yukai stood up and said, "It's me, hello. Hello." He turned off the engine and got out of the car. The man was 1.75 meters tall, wearing black trousers and a shirt. His age was hard to tell, but he could only guess he was no more than 30 years old. His voice was gentle. "We're from the Conservancy, here to verify the situation. I didn't expect you to actually come. I've reported this to many major organizations, but there's been no response since I sent emails. I've sent dozens of emails, and you're the first organization to take this seriously. I'm sure others will follow. We just got ahead of them." Yuli nodded and said, "So what should we do now? Should we take you there first or wait until tonight?" Yukai and Luo Zhanggyang stared at each other, unsure whether to go now or wait. "It's not good if someone sees us now, so I'll take you there tonight. Come with me, I'll find you a place to rest." Luo Zhanggyang asked curiously, "Are there any hotels nearby?" "Hotel?" Yuli laughed. "How can there be a hotel here? But I have a lot of empty houses over there, and I can find you 2 empty rooms to stay in first." "From your tone, I guess you're not from here?" Yukai asked. "I'm from Shansheng, and I'm a volunteer teacher here. The school was built a few years ago as part of the whole project. There's a dormitory, but not many students live there." So he was a volunteer teacher. It was a job Yukai admired but had never dared to try. Yuli asked the two of them to get on his motorcycle. The motorcycle was long, so it was a bit crowded for 3 people, but it was still enough. As they drove, the scenery kept changing, but the one thing that remained constant was the terraced mountain in the distance. It looked close, but in fact, it was very far away. "We just finished lunch at school. If you haven't eaten yet, you can reheat the food." "Don't bother, we just finished." The school wasn't located in this village. The road was dwindling, and after a few minutes, they saw a beautiful-looking teaching building. As they got closer, Yukai saw the entire school. There were teaching buildings, a cafeteria, and dormitories. The teaching building was in the middle, 3 stories high, and the tallest of the 3. The corridor faced the road, so it was clear that there were 9 classrooms in the building. The dormitories were 2 stories high, on the left, and the cafeteria was on the right. The 3 buildings surrounded a playground in the middle, with a basketball court and a running track. The basket was badly damaged, and the backboard was a bit warped. Some students playing on the playground saw Yuli coming back and shouted, "Teacher Yu! Hello, Teacher Yu!" After calling out to Yuli, the children didn't forget Yukai and Luo Zhanggyang, and shouted, "Hello, Uncle!" Chapter 229 Volunteer Teacher. Uncle. Uncle's uncle. When a group of 7 or 8-year-old girls with pigtails blink their big, innocent eyes, what can you do at this time? Of course, you choose to accommodate them. Walk around them across the playground and go up to the 3rd floor of the teaching building. Entering the corridor from the stairwell, the first room you see is the teacher's office. Yuli opened the door with his key and said, "This is my office. Come in and sit down. I will tell you what I know." Very self-conscious. The two followed Yuli into the office. The huge office has no extra decorations. A very simple desk is placed by the window, facing the window sideways, so that light can shine on the desk when working. There is a bookcase closest to the door. It is the kind of bookcase that can be bought for a few $dozen and assembled by hand. There are about 100 books in it, of all kinds of types, very miscellaneous. Seeing Yukai interested in his bookcase, Yuli said, "The books in here were all bought by me in the past 2 years. I read a lot of different books, and I read everything." Yukai nodded and said, "How many years have you been a teacher here?" Yuli said, 3 years, about that. I planned to do it for 5 years before going back. When I first came here, I wanted to stay here for a year or 2 and then go home, but I didn't expect that I would stay so long. Are you reluctant to leave these children? Maybe. If I only come here to teach as a teacher for 1 year, it will be a big hurt to these children. They have just met you for a short time, and they have to be separated. Luo Zhanggyang said, "Wouldn't it be that the longer the time, the deeper the relationship, right?" Yuli put the book he had just taken back on the bookshelf, sighed, and said, "But I can't stay here forever. My family is urging me." Then, he cheered up and said, "Let's talk about business. You should be here for Black Bear." "Yes," said Yukai. "I saw that place last July," Yuli said, lost in reminiscence, leaning back comfortably in his chair. "I was walking 2 kids home from the neighboring village and passed a yard on the way. It was just an ordinary rural house, but unlike those other houses, the family's house had a high wall and a metal gate. I didn't think much of it at the time. It's their freedom to decorate their house however they want, right?" Yukai nodded, agreeing, "Yeah, if it were me, I wouldn't mind. There were even stranger houses, and building walls was a way to protect privacy. It was perfectly normal." "Well, then, When I was driving back, I heard the cries of a wild animal inside. I was worried the family might be in danger, so I stopped and went in to help. They'd probably just arrived home, and the door wasn't locked yet, so I peeked through the crack in the door and saw what they were doing. There were about 4 or 5 black bears trapped in a cage. I don't remember the details, but I remember they were skinny, like big black dogs. Are you sure they were extracting bile? Luo Zhangjiang asked. Yuli said, I don't know. I was startled and left immediately. Later, when I was dropping off students, I kept an eye on this family a few times, and sometimes I could still hear the roars. Yukai said, in any case, this place doesn't meet the standards of a regular pharmaceutical factory. Even the most basic hygiene isn't up to standard. It's probably closed, right? Can we go there at night? Yuli checked the time and said, I have classes this afternoon. I'll take you there later, but if there are people around, we can only go there at night. No wonder he was so cautious. Since this family dared to run this business, they certainly knew the dangers. If they noticed someone watching what they were doing, they would likely attack them in a fit of rage. They wouldn't just jostle for a while without fighting. They'd probably just swing a stick at your head. Yuli helped them solve their nighttime housing problem, so Yukai felt less anxious to return. He said, okay, go ahead and teach. I'm actually quite curious about your lives. How many teachers are there here? Including me, there are 4. One has taught here for years and is also the principal. One is a government-hired teacher, and the other, like me, is here to teach. 4 people? There are so many classrooms here. Yukai said, somewhat surprised. Some are empty, and some have books. There are only 100 or so students, so having so many classrooms is pointless. When this teaching building was built, the student population wasn't considered. The old principal insisted that they only build 2 floors, using the extra materials for a library. But the workers simply followed the blueprints. After all, the principal wasn't the one paying them. So it ended up like this. Yuli's alarm went off, and he grabbed the Chinese textbook from under his desk. I'm going to class now. Do you want to come over and listen? Of course, you can wait here until I'm done. It'll probably take an hour. Of course, he chose to go over and listen. Sitting here waiting for an hour, only to play with my phone at best. How much more fun would it be to attend class? Only after leaving school do you realize how precious those childhood learning days were. Back when Yukai was at work, he'd often wondered how wonderful it would be to go back to elementary and middle school. University teaching methods differ from those of elementary and middle school, so most people nostalgically focus on their elementary, middle, and high school years. While they might miss university, it's not necessarily about studying. It's about a time of youth. Yuli accompanied the 2 downstairs. The bell for class began to ring, but the students were already seated, needing no prompting. Ahem, Yuli cleared his throat, trudging into the classroom. Hello, class. Hello, teacher. It felt right. Yuli looked toward the front door and introduced them. These 2 are friends of the teacher. They'll be sitting in on this class with you. Everyone, please welcome them. Although the children didn't know them, they applauded enthusiastically at the teacher's urging. There were plenty of empty seats at the back of the classroom, and the 2 walked into the room amidst applause. Yukai smiled and nodded at the children along the way, offering them affirmation. Adults' affirmation was a great encouragement to children. Thanks to Yukai's smile and encouragement, he made a very good first impression on the children, leaving them with the image of an uncle with a nice smile. The benches were clean, dust-free despite being unoccupied. The 2 found a seat, and Yuli began his lesson. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Yukai's Small Classroom. Class, today's lesson is about dinosaurs flying into the blue sky. Yuli wrote beautiful, bold chalk calligraphy on the still new blackboard. The words dinosaurs flying into the blue sky were written with such vigor and energy that it was clear he was a seasoned teacher. After finishing, Yuli dropped his chalk and clapped his hands, saying, from the topic, we know today's lesson is about dinosaurs. So, how much do you know about them? Children, especially boys, are always fascinated by dinosaurs. This is universal for children of all ages. Yukai remembers loving stories about dinosaurs as a child, and his hometown in Xiancheng still has a collection of dinosaur toys from his childhood. The children rush to speak, sharing their own stories about dinosaurs with their innocent and romantic imaginations. Luo Zhangjiang lay on his desk, playing with his phone. Yukai looked at Yuli, deeply moved. Back in elementary school, if only he had such a good teacher. Yukai had good grades, but he wasn't always good. His homeroom teacher's attitude towards poor students and his preference for the top students were too obvious. Everyone has their moments of mischief, and Yukai only started to study seriously after some unforgettable lessons. If you think of a school as a company and teachers as employees, then there are so many companies in the country, and excellent employees will of course look for better companies. Of course, this is not absolute, and some excellent talents will choose small companies to accumulate experience. The worse off are those companies located in small cities, which do not have the capital to attract excellent employees. This is why many parents now want to buy a house in a better school district. After all, no matter how poor you are, you cannot be poor in education, right? Yukai had a classmate in high school who studied painting for several years in Xiancheng. When she finally went to Shancheng for the art exam, she found that there was a big gap between the test questions required for the art exam and what the teacher taught her. She studied for several years and failed the exam. You can imagine how important the educational environment is to a student. When we talk about dinosaurs, we often think of the ferocious Tyrannosaurus rex or the lumbering, slow-moving Mamenchisaurus. When we talk about birds, our minds naturally conjure up images of ethereal pigeons, swallows, or colorful peacocks. These two seem unrelated, but in recent years, increasing evidence suggests that a branch of dinosaurs underwent a long evolutionary process, ultimately giving rise to the birds we see soaring through the skies today. Yuli's voice was gentle, something Yukai had noticed during their first phone call. Only then did Yukai realize that this gentleness might have been ingrained in Yuli's tone from daily lectures to these young children. The children were incredibly obedient, and Yuli remained silent throughout his lecture, sitting upright with his hands on the table. He finished his dinosaur story and then had the students read their books. The next page of the text contained the new words needed for the lesson. Yuli wrote each word on the blackboard, then marked each word with pinyin. After teaching for over 30 minutes, many students were exhausted, their spirits noticeably lower than at the start. Yuli checked the end time and asked Yukai, "Would you like to come up and give a lecture?" "Me," Yukai said, a little embarrassed. "Forget it, I don't know what to say. Anything is fine. We sometimes get people who come here for short-term teaching during the holidays. They don't primarily teach academic subjects, but rather broaden the children's horizons." Suddenly, the children looked at Yukai with anticipation, wondering, is this big brother, uncle, going to tell you some wonderful stories again? He hadn't agreed yet, but enjoying the children's expectant and admiring gazes was such a sense of accomplishment. No wonder Yuli loved being a teacher and had stayed here for several years. Yukai hesitated and said to Yuli uncertainly, "Then I'll give it a try." "That would be great," Yuli said with a smile. He rarely used the internet, so he didn't know Yukai's specific identity, but he figured, since he worked for an international organization, he must have been abroad. Compared to those young teachers still in college, Yukai, having experienced life in society, could certainly tell more compelling stories than those young people from big cities. He walked to the side of the podium and motioned for Yukai to come forward. The internet connection was poor here. Reading novels and making phone calls was no problem, but watching live streams or videos was a hassle. So, Yuli took to reading. Sometimes after class, or during evening study sessions, he would share stories with his classmates. It was Yuli who cultivated the students' love of storytelling. Yukai stood at the podium, lost in thought. What could he say? If you were facing a group of adults, or someone watching a live stream, he could probably rant about Paris's public safety and hygiene, or about elephants in Africa, or even about protecting the environment. But for children, sure, he could talk, but where would he even begin? Silence. Seeing Yukai's pause on the stage, the children didn't urge him, but simply watched him quietly. Then, a little girl raised her hand. Yuli asked the little girl to speak, and she said, Big brother, what do you do?" This question was a life-saving one. Yukai thought to himself, since we're talking about professions, let's start with mine. A traveler. My profession is a traveler who travels everywhere. The classroom erupted in exclamations. Even Yuli looked at Yukai in surprise. He couldn't detect even the slightest trace of the weathered look of a traveler in Yukai's fair skin. Travel is a beautiful word. Even a child of 7 or 8 can appreciate its beauty. After a brief moment of exclamations and envy, more people began raising their hands to ask questions, each with 1,000 questions they wanted Yukai to answer. Yukai looked at Yuli, but Yuli said, "You choose." Looking at the children below the podium, their hands raised, eager to try, Yukai felt an inexplicable feeling well up within him. It was an unfamiliar feeling, but it made him feel the joy of being an educator, even if it was only for a short time. Among the students, a boy's eyes gleamed with curiosity, filling the entire classroom. Yukai called on them, students sitting by the window, in the 4th row, "What do you want to ask?" The student glanced around, counted his seats, and then stood up and asked, "Big brother, can travelers visit many places? Do they see foreigners?" "Of course," Yukai affirmed. "You can see foreigners in many cities in China these days, but if you go abroad, you'll be surrounded by foreigners, all unfamiliar faces." Yukai called on a little girl. "So, big brother, what exactly do travelers do? What does traveling entail?" To put it in a more literary way, it's, what's the meaning of travel? In reality, traveling is, to some extent, meaningless. It doesn't contribute much to society. But it can have a profound impact on individuals. Yukai pondered how to respond. Chapter 231 Geography Class. Yuli was also curious about how Yukai, who considered travel his profession, would answer this question. His life plan was to leave this place and travel for a while, to see what changes had taken place in the world over the past few years. Yukai said, "The most important thing about travel is that it brings you joy, just like the joy of your parents taking you to unfamiliar places, the joy of meeting new friends, the joy of discovering beautiful scenery. Of course, these are just my interpretations of travel. What about you? What kind of trip do you want to take?" The children raised their hands. Yukai randomly pointed to one and said, "I want to fly into space on a rocket, take an interstellar tour, and see the universe. I want to pilot my own spaceship and travel to the sun and stars." "Alone?" Yukai asked curiously. Children's imaginations are truly vivid. How did travel suddenly become a dream? Becoming an astronaut is probably your dream, right? "And my parents, of course," he said. "Do you want your parents to see space too? You're such a filial child," Yukai praised. Unexpectedly, the child started to quip, saying, "Not really. It's mainly because I'm piloting the spaceship and don't have time to cook. If mom and dad come with me, they can cook for me." Yukai suddenly realized that explaining the meaning of travel to children was pointless. Their understanding of travel differed from what Yukai was actually trying to achieve. Just like the little boy said, he wanted to pilot a spaceship on an interstellar journey. But in reality, interstellar travel wasn't what mattered most. It was likely that what he needed most was his parents. In a child's mind, traveling didn't mean anything. What meant anything was hanging out with his parents. And since many of the students in this school were left behind children, it was likely not just this little boy. Many would likely think that traveling meant hanging out with their parents. Yukai suddenly relaxed. He knew how to communicate with these children. He needed to strike his own rhythm. "Do you know about windmills?" Yukai asked. I know. Isn't a windmill a long white pillar with fan blades on it?" "Yes, that's a windmill you're talking about, too. These white ones are mostly found in places with strong winds year-round. When the wind blows, the windmills spin. Many places use windmills to generate electricity, that's how it works. But I want to talk about a windmill I saw abroad, in the windmill village of Amsterdam, the Netherlands." Yukai picked up a pen from the table and wrote on the blackboard, "Holland." Then he asked the children, "Do you know where the Netherlands is?" Everyone was silent for 2 seconds, then said in unison, "I don't know." Yukai then drew a map on the blackboard, tracing the outline of China with chalk, then all of Europe, circled the location of the Netherlands, and said, "This is the Netherlands. And here," Yukai said, pointing to China, "this is our country, China." The children listened attentively to Yukai's lecture. This was their first geography class. Before this, the school hadn't even taught it. They only knew that their homeland looked like a rooster, huge and enormous. But the map Yukai drew taught them that the world was just as vast, even larger than China, much larger. Yukai passionately described the beautiful windmill village, then drew the ocean and a small island. Pointing to the island, he said, "This is the island of Ireland." There are two countries on it, one is Ireland, and the other belongs to Britain. The mention of Ireland inevitably led to stories about the island, stories of famine and the War of Independence. The children remembered them vividly. Perhaps years or even decades from now, when they think of Ireland, they'll associate it with potatoes, famine, and war. They also remembered Ireland's location on the map. It was right next to Britain, not far from the Netherlands. Yukai was practically glowing. This wasn't just storytelling, it was even better than the best geography teacher's lectures. He spoke with passion and emotion about the customs and cultures of these countries, along with a few anecdotes. And this was without any preparation, just speaking off the cuff. Yuli suddenly felt a surge of admiration for Yukai, who was younger than him. Is this what a traveler is? He'd visited so many places and seen so much culture. So enviable. Yukai was talking about England when the bell rang. He was lost in thought, lost for a moment, as if unsure of what was going on. Then a voice called out from next door, "Goodbye, teacher." He remembered he was lecturing in a school, having lost track of time. The children, reluctant to let him go, urged him to continue. Even Yuli said, "Then finish your lecture on England. How long will it take?" Yukai thought for a moment and said, 5 or 6 minutes. Previously, he had spoken whatever came to his mind, but now, after a pause, he had memorized everything he was going to say. The children from next door, passing by and seeing no one had moved, gathered at the door to watch. Yukai ignored them and continued with his unfinished speech. "So, what about England?" After a few minutes, Yukai threw down his chalk and said, "Well, get out of class is over." For just over 10 minutes, Yukai had truly treated himself like a teacher, living the life of a teacher. Hearing the end of get out of class, a little girl stood up reflexively and said, "Goodbye, teacher." "Oh, goodbye, classmates." Yuli clapped his hands and said, "That's great. How do you know so much about these countries?" "When I go to a place, I like to read stories about it. Sometimes I get so engrossed that I read more. I really enjoy reading." Yukai's bookshelves are filled with original books brought back from abroad. He reads when he's free at home. He rarely plays games anymore. Only when friends get together, 4 or 5 of them, will Yukai play multiplayer games with him. For him now, reading is a joy, and so is playing games. When you discover a new joy, and that joy surpasses gaming, your addiction naturally fades. Yukai used to love playing games. When he got his first payout from the system, his first thought was to top up his game, and it's no different now. Buying original books is even more expensive than playing games. Chapter 232 Two Methods. Yuli returned to his office to pack up. He planned to take Yukai to check out the place. Luo Zhangjiang would stay at the school. The motorcycle looked flimsy, and it would be dangerous for 3 adults to ride it, so Yukai and Yuli would go alone. Yukai waited at the door, and many passing students called out, "Hello, teacher." "Hello, you two." They had no idea what Yukai was doing there. Many thought he was a new teacher, and some of the older girls gathered to discuss the new teacher. Yuli walked out with his keys and said, "Let's go." Walking down a blocked road, they found the first village, a fairly large one. Following this road, they could see 2 other villages. Those villages were practically isolated from the world. The only people still living there were the elderly and left-behind children, those who were underage or unwilling to go to school. Every weekend, Yuli would take a few of the younger children back to the village. He discovered that the illegal bile extraction factory was located along this road. An hour later, Yuli pulled over to the side of the road, took a careful look around, and said to Yukai, "That's it, see it." Yukai looked at where Yuli pointed. Compared to the factory he'd seen before, this place was much simpler, just an ordinary farmyard with a high fence. If it weren't for Yuli, Yukai would never have considered that this place could be used for anything other than living. "This." "Yes," Yuli said quickly, lowering his voice as he saw Yukai move. "Hey, what are you doing?" Yukai started to move closer to see if there was any way to see what was going on inside. Upon hearing Yuli's words, he replied, "I'll go take a look." Yuli glanced around nervously, but still followed Yukai closer to the yard. The wall was probably made of bricks as well, but it was painted with cement, with no cracks visible. The gate was a double iron gate with iron sheets covering the gap. Just then, Yukai heard a low animal roar. He didn't know if it was a black bear, but it was definitely not a common household pet like a cat or dog. Yuli asked, "What should we do? Are you going in?" "No," Yukai said. "All I need is evidence." "And do you think they'll let me in?" "Let me think." This trip with Yuli was primarily to confirm whether bears were actually being kept here. There was no need to film anything, and we weren't rushing to meet deadlines. "So what do we do now?" Yuli asked. A low growl continued to emanate from the yard, a deep sound that made Yukai imagine their tragic fate. "Let me think about it," Yukai said. "Is there any way to see what's going on inside the yard without going in?" There were no high slopes or trees nearby, and the distant mountains wouldn't be able to see what was going on inside. Suddenly, Yukai thought of something, a drone. He already had one, but it was at home. He'd leave for the city tomorrow to buy one, and then return to this place tomorrow night. He'd take off and film the yard directly. Job done, perfect. Yukai's job was to obtain evidence, take photos, and write a report to send to Rachel. Who was breaking the law and what punishment the family would face were none of Yukai's business. His role with WPSA was simply as an on-site reporter. There were no reporters arresting anyone to solve the case. Yukai called out to Yuli, saying, let's go back first." Yuli was confused, but he didn't want to stay here any longer, so the two of them walked towards the motorcycle. He thought, Yukai and he are both so thin, if something really happened, they wouldn't be able to win a fight even if the other person gave up one hand. So he quickly started the motorcycle and drove towards the school. On the way, Yuli asked, "Do you have a solution?" "Well, I think we'll have a result tomorrow. There's no rush for this matter. Where my colleagues and I sleep tonight is more important." Having come up with a solution, Yukai felt relieved. Yuli saw the smile on Yukai's face in the rearview mirror and knew that Yukai had an idea, so he didn't ask any more questions. "There are empty rooms in the dormitory. I'll find you 2 clean quilts when the time comes." Speaking of quilts, Yuli suddenly asked, "By the way, you don't have mysophobia or anything like that, right? The walls in the dormitory have been neglected and are a little damp. Although the quilts are clean, they're not new." "It's okay," Yukai replied. When Yukai was in the snowy area, he had slept in a herder's room, and he fell asleep just the same. He liked cleanliness, but he wasn't a germaphobe. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone on a trip and would have just cleaned his house every day. Back at school, after enjoying some attention, he returned to Yuli's office. Luo Zhanggyang was sitting in a chair reading a book. When he saw the two of them come back, he asked, "How is it?" "It should be true, but I can't see what's going on inside." "Huh? What should we do then? Do you want Brother Yi to stay here and watch them while I go to town to find the police?" "There won't be any problems if we go directly to the house for an inspection," Yukai said. That's one way. He had been thinking about how to solve it alone, forgetting that he was now an international organization investigating the illegal extraction of bear bile in a black factory. Luo Zhanggyang had accompanied the previous team several times and was familiar with this process. "That's it," Yukai said. "Zhanggyang, go to the town tomorrow, report it to the county police, and have them send some people over." Luo Zhanggyang nodded and said, "Okay, then, Brother Yi, what are you doing?" "Me? I'm writing an article." Actually, Yukai wouldn't start writing until he saw the black bear, but why run when he could just lie down? Luo Zhanggyang was in poor health, so he told him to walk around more and exercise. "Ah." Luo Zhanggyang's confident expression immediately darkened. It was quite amusing. Some of the local children had already gone home from school, and about 20 or so children from other villages were left behind, all boarding at the school. The public provided a lot of support to Hope Primary School. Impoverished children in the area could attend school free of tuition and accommodation fees, and they also received 3 meals a day, so many parents were happy to send their children to live at the school. The cafeteria was large, but since its construction, it had never been full. It could accommodate 500 people at a time, but at its peak, fewer than 200 people ate there. If it weren't for the principal's stubbornness, the villagers would definitely hold all kinds of banquets here. Yukai also met the principal that Yuli had been talking about here. He was a small old man in his 70s wearing glasses and was very humorous. The cook was a local villager. She was not paid to cook here, but being able to eat a meal with them was considered a well-paid job in the village. Anyway, you just need to cook, and you can still do whatever you want at other times. The dishes were divided into 3 portions and placed on the dining table. Each table was set with 8 sets of bowls and chopsticks. The bowls were small iron bowls, which were not easy to break and safer for children. There were only more than 20 people dining, so there was no need to queue up for food. The dishes were simple: cabbage and potatoes, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and seaweed soup. In fact, Yukai liked both of these dishes very much, but according to what Yuli said, these two dishes were basically served every day. No meat? Yukai asked. Yuli said, yes, there is meat in the dishes now, in the roasted potatoes, but it is indeed a little. Our school does not have much funding, only a little bit every year. If these are the dishes we eat every day, it would be a bit shabby. Chapter 233. What's missing? Elementary schools don't have evening self-study classes, but boarding students are exempt. Perhaps the school administration believes that even if students don't have classes, they won't go to bed. Since the school doesn't care about day students, boarding students should just attend evening self-study and then go back to sleep. However, there's really not much to learn during evening self-study in elementary school. A few teachers occasionally tell stories or review previously learned lessons, so the children aren't forced to endure the same pre-existing test-taking tactics as those in middle or high school. During evening self-study, a female volunteer teacher read fairy tales to the students. Yuli took Yukai to the principal to get 2 clean quilts. Actually, this Hope Primary School is well built, at least on the outside, but it does have fewer students and teachers. Yukai has decided to donate money to it. During his livestream, Yukai had said he would donate all his earnings to impoverished mountainous areas. After dinner, Yukai checked and found a total of over 800,000 yuan. This is all he has earned since he started live streaming. Actually, that wasn't much. Yukai never asked for gifts from his audience, and instead often advised his fans against them. This was a unique trait among all the streamers online. Yukai thought, let's take 100,000 yuan and use it for this school. This place wasn't particularly poor. There was a newly built Hope Primary School, and the teachers who supported the program received government salaries, so the money wouldn't be too much. Yukai knew that many schools in impoverished areas of China didn't have such good facilities. Even a quarter of the teachers who supported the program worked out of love, earning only a meager annual income. He couldn't help everyone, but when Yukai visited a place like this, he certainly didn't skimp on his own money. He would at least make sure the local teachers and children had a basic living. Late at night, Yukai put his dead phone aside to charge and said to Luo Zhenggang, I'm going to get some water to wash up. You. Luo Zhenggang looked at his phone and said, yeah, I'll wait a little longer. His phone was playing PUBG, but the signal was so poor that the game kept freezing. He didn't know how Luo Zhenggang could still enjoy the game under such circumstances. Holding a new basin, Yukai filled a corner of the playground with hot water. The school's hot water was supplied by a water heater, similar to those used at home. After turning the hot water valve, hot water arrived in seconds, just the right temperature, slightly scalding. A female student approaching saw Yukai and called out, hello, teacher. Yukai smiled and nodded. There was only one hot water valve, so the girl had to wait in line behind Yukai. The water flow was weak, and it took 2 minutes to fill a basin. Unconcerned, Yukai gazed at the school building. All the classrooms were dark, save for 2 offices, where they needed to prepare materials for tomorrow's class. Even elementary school teachers had to prepare lessons. Yukai asked the little girl behind him, doesn't your teacher usually leave the village? The girl replied, I don't know. She felt a little insecure. Whenever Yukai looked into her eyes, she would look away, down at the ground or at the basin in her arms. By then, Yukai's basin was already overflowing with water. It wasn't until the water started leaking out of the rim that he realized it and quickly moved his own bowl away. Tonight, until the moment before he fell asleep, Yukai kept thinking. Is there anything else he could do for them before he left? 100,000 yuan might make life a little easier for the school, allowing them to have some meat at every meal, buy some vegetables, and read more books. But Yukai saw that the students' lack was spiritual, not material. The school was far from the village, so no roosters could be heard crowing, but Luo Zhengyang's alarm still woke Yukai. Frowning, he was about to go back to sleep when his eyes suddenly fluttered open. The moment he woke, Yukai thought of a way to entertain himself. Yes, that was what was lacking here. Come on, I'll go out with you, Yukai said, getting up. He wasn't going to lie in bed and do nothing today. He could comfortably let Luo Zhengyang handle the work, but he still had to handle his personal matters himself. Luo Zhengyang was certainly happy, otherwise, walking alone on the mountain road would be so lonely. The round trip would take 4 hours, so Luo Zhengyang got up early. It was still dawn, and it wasn't even 6 o'clock yet. If they left at 6:30, they wouldn't be out of the mountains until 8. They still had to drive to the county town, so time was pretty tight. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the two of them walked, one in front of the other, on the deserted mountain road. The chirping of insects gradually died down with the arrival of sunlight. It was time for them to rest. There was another reason. The birds were already awake, and if the insects were still chirping, it would be like they were shouting, "Come eat me." The early bird catches the worm, that's exactly what it means. After climbing over a hill, the sky was bright. Yukai looked back and could still vaguely see the small hill covered in paddy fields, hazy beneath a veil of mist. Luo Zhengyang suddenly shouted, "Pheasants, pheasants." A flock of pheasants suddenly appeared in the mountains. At a glance, there were at least 6 of them. Luo Zhengyang's shout startled a swarm of birds, sending the pheasants fluttering away. Luo Zhengyang quickly picked up a stone and threw it in the direction of the pheasants, but it missed and landed on the ground. "You're walking so fast." Luo Zhengyang cursed in Cantonese in frustration. "You're quite energetic," Yukai said to Luo Zhengyang with a smile. He had said just a few minutes ago that he couldn't walk anymore and needed to rest, but now he was so excited at the sight of a pheasant. Even if he caught one, what would happen? Would he dare to eat it? Luo Zhengyang complained to Yukai, "Brother Yi, you're so boring." Having made this journey before, he made it out much faster this time, making it out in less than 2 hours. However, by the time he emerged, Luo Zhengyang was almost exhausted. He almost fell to his knees when he saw the car. "Oh my god, Brother Yi, it's a good thing you're with me, otherwise I doubt if I can make it out, it's too painful." Yukai was hit. "Rest well in the car, we still have to go out soon." Ah. Luo Zhengyang was right, it's a good thing he came out with me. How can he drive with his kidney deficiency now? Not to mention driving for several hours. I still overestimated him. After getting in the car, Luo Zhengyang laid the chair flat and lay down on it. After fastening his seat belt, Yukai drove directly to Weining County, the city where the two had stayed for a night. Luo Zhengyang was going to seek help from the police, while Yukai was going to do something else. Chapter 234. It's 2020 and is there anyone who hasn't seen the movie? Arriving in the county town, Yukai dropped Luo Zhengyang off at the Public Security Bureau. After getting out of the car, Luo Zhengyang asked Yukai, "Brother Yi, when will you pick me up?" Yukai calculated the time and said, "About half an hour. You can sit inside and rest after you're done. I'll call you when I get back." "Got it, brother." They restarted the car and set off. The area was filled with office buildings. After a few minutes, they crossed a bridge and arrived at the old part of the city, separated by a river. Yukai found the cinema he'd discovered last time. His idea was to show movies for the children from the countryside. Doesn't the owner love showing movies? Showing movies here is boring. People come here just for a free place to brag, not to watch movies. But in the countryside, many of those students have never seen a movie. Afternoon study is free, right? So, every few days, they'd show open-air movies in the playground, showing movies like A Beautiful Mind and The Prince of Egypt. While the cinema's equipment might seem a bit outdated, it was a novelty for the children from the impoverished mountainous area. Decades ago, people would carry these things around to mountain villages to show them, but those people no longer see them. As a result, few people born after 2000 in mountain villages have ever seen a movie. Some might say, it's 2020, and who hasn't seen a movie? Why not eat meat? The countries with the greatest wealth disparity in the world are all in Asia, and China is one of them. When traveling abroad, I often heard foreigners disparage China, but with China's growing strength, many people abroad are now puzzled. Why is China still a developing country? Because China's development is currently so uneven, with big cities no different from developed countries. But to understand why China is a developing country, you have to come to the mountains. 3,000 yuan is a watershed. While many people look down on a 3,000 yuan a month job, they probably don't know that 3,000 yuan is considered a high salary nationwide. Many mountainous areas have barely made enough to eat, and there's still a long way to go before achieving a moderately prosperous society. The cinema door was closed, and Yukai approached and knocked. The child who was seen at the door last time opened the door, and when he saw Yukai, he asked, What can I do for you? Is your father here? Oh, he's not here. What can I do for you? Yukai was about to ask for his father's phone number when he heard a man's voice from inside the room. Who is it? Oh. He was so young and yet he could lie without blinking. This kid has a bright future. The child was also stunned when he heard his father's voice. He blushed and said, I remembered it wrongly. My dad is here. Dad? Someone is looking for you. After that, he ran away inside. The uncle, who had met Yukai once before, came over and saw that it was Yukai. He smiled innocently and said, It's you. What do you want to talk to me about? Yukai said, Uncle, do you know Fangshu Village? Fangshu Village? Oh, I know. What's the matter? I'd like to invite you to bring your equipment to Fangshu Village to show a movie. I went there a few days ago and I think the villagers might need your movie more. The uncle looked at Yukai for a long time, then took out a cigarette from his pocket, shook out one and asked Yukai, Young man, do you smoke? I don't smoke. Come in and talk, he said. There was no movie showing in this place at the moment, and the lights were brighter. Yukai then realized that this was actually the uncle's house. There was a staircase leading to the second floor, and the child was looking at Yukai from the stairs. The uncle lit a cigarette and said, Of course I know it's better to show movies over there. To be honest, I followed my dad to show movies everywhere when I was a kid, but... He took a puff of the cigarette and said, The wives and children are already very opposed to me showing movies here. If I go so far to show movies for the rural people, I'm afraid we will have a fight. He smiled and asked Yukai, Do you understand, young man? This is reality. It's just a matter of course. Of course I won't let you make a wasted trip. I will communicate with the school. After all, you still have to pay for tickets to watch a movie, right? Before the uncle could speak, a woman came down from the stairs with a child and asked Yukai, How much is it? 200. Okay, 200 is 200. The woman was overjoyed and helped Yukai persuade her man, saying, What are you thinking about? 200 yuan is not better than you showing movies here for free every day. 10 minutes later, there was one more person in Yukai's car. The entire 10 minutes were spent moving heavy equipment. A 2 or 3 hour mountain road carrying all this equipment wasn't practical. The road needed to be repaired soon. As they neared the Public Security Bureau, Yukai called Luo Zhenggang. 5 people were standing outside the gate, Luo Zhenggang and 4 police officers. Luo Zhenggang got in Yukai's car, and the 4 officers drove off towards Fangshu Village. The man, bewildered by the scene, asked, What's going on? Luo Zhenggang said cheerfully, looking for police help catching the bad guys. My name is Luo Zhenggang, who are you? Hello, I'm Liu Gulbing. Yukai said, the kids at school have nothing to do tonight. I'll find a trainer to show them some movies. It'll broaden their horizons. Brother you're so thoughtful, Luo Zhenggang said flatteringly. I don't know what Luo Zhenggang has been doing for the past half hour, but he seems suddenly much happier. After filling up the tank en route and returning to their previous stop, Yukai unloaded a large amount of equipment from the car. He carried the coil box, which held his DSLR camera, and handed another box to Luo Zhenggang. Let me do it, I'll do it. Liu Gulbing quickly took the box. Everything was incredibly heavy. Yukai was having a headache. How was he going to carry it all? There were 4 boxes alone, plus the metal rack, the speakers, and the heaviest of all, the coils. They looked small, but they were incredibly heavy. Yukai could hold the coils in one hand and the projector in the other. But it still wasn't enough. Several police officers came to help, and Yukai finally breathed a sigh of relief. He still had 2 more hours to go. Oh my god, what a rotten idea. After half an hour, Luo Zhenggang couldn't hold on any longer and said, Let's take a break. We're exhausted. The police officer, though not complaining about being tired, frowned and asked, Does this road take that long? Yes, Yukai said. The road needs to be repaired soon, otherwise it'll be too inconvenient. We're already preparing it, one of the officers said. Another policeman continued, We've just contacted the construction team, and they should be able to start work next month. There are many landslides on that road, and it will take more than 10 days just to clean it up. We also need to find people to reinforce it, which is quite troublesome. Fortunately, Yukai carried the heaviest things himself, otherwise he would feel bad. If this matter can be resolved tomorrow, he must treat them to a meal before leaving. Several people are physically strong. If Luo Zhangjiang hadn't had to rest after each step, it would probably take more than an hour to reach Fangshu village. The oldest of the 4 policemen was 40 years old, and the youngest was a recent veteran. They were all former soldiers, and 2 hours of mountain walking probably didn't even cover the amount of training they usually received. Even the projectionist Liu Gulbing was physically stronger than Luo Zhangjiang, which made him more determined to intensify his training after returning to Hong Kong Island. Chapter 235, Audacious. Once out of the forest, a road emerged. A little further along the road, the village would be in sight. Everyone placed their belongings on the ground. Yukai also gently set down the projector and coil, flexed his 5 fingers, and said, "I'll go ask around nearby and see if I can borrow a car." A police officer said, "I don't think it'll be easy. So, I'll call the leadership and get the village committee's contact information so they can cooperate." "Okay, but we have to get the equipment out first." Geographically, the area they were inspecting wasn't part of the village, but it wasn't convenient for Yuli to continue participating. So, Yukai had to find a cart to deliver the equipment to the school. Most of the people who knew Yukai knew Yuli were currently at the school. Yukai trusted the county police to keep their identities secret. As long as they wore masks and hats throughout, no one would connect a photographer accompanying the police with Yukai, who was trying out teaching at the school. After all, Yuli still had to teach here. If the villagers knew he was the whistleblower, his teaching career would likely end prematurely. "Zhangjiang, have you rested well? Take the bracket and a projector." "Huh? Still need to take them." Yukai patted Luo Zhangjiang on the shoulder and said, "This matter will probably be finished in the next 2 days. I'll treat you to a big meal later. You can choose the table." When Luo Zhangjiang thought of the food he had eaten in the past few days, and then thought of the lobster, abalone and French snails, his mouth immediately secreted saliva. He was so greedy that he said, "Then I'll look forward to your big meal." Including Liu Gulbing, there were 3 of them. They walked along the road for a short distance before they saw a house with a tricycle parked. Yukai spent 200 yuan to negotiate and persuaded the family to drive the equipment to the school. "Zhangjiang, you and Master Liu go to the school to set up first. I'll be there in a while." "Won't I go with you?" Luo Zhangjiang asked. "No need, I'll be there. You go to the school and help set up the scene." Yukai then said to the villager who was driving the vehicle, "If you're free, we can go to the school to watch a movie tonight." "An open-air movie? Of course, I haven't seen one in ages." After watching the 3-wheeled vehicle drive away, Yukai returned to the village entrance alone. A Wuling Hongguang was already parked there, and 2 unfamiliar faces were shaking hands with the police. Yukai pulled a mask from his pocket, put it on, and walked over with his camera in hand. The older police officer glanced at Yukai and said, "Everyone's here. Let's go." One of the 2 men came over to shake Yukai's hand and introduced himself. "Hello, comrade. I'm Wang Yuangshen, the village director." "Hello, hello." Yukai made no move to introduce himself, simply nodding. Wang Yuangshen, looking at Yukai's attire and camera, felt a chill in his spine. Wasn't that exactly how a reporter would dress? What had happened? Why were there police officers and reporters? How come I didn't know anything about it? The village chief was so worried that his wrinkles grew on his face. The car was a 7-seater Wuling Hongguang, scuffed with scratches and rust from lack of repairs. There was also a foul odor inside. The interior was spacious, and with a little squeezing, it was just enough for all the people. The driver's palms were sweating at the sight of so many police officers. One officer smiled and reassured him, "Don't be nervous. We're not here to arrest you." "No, I'm not nervous." Several officers laughed, knowing that this nervousness wasn't the criminal's fear of the police, but rather the locals' nervousness and discomfort with the uniforms. This village had rarely seen uniformed officers in years. The car drove steadily for 20 minutes. Yukai had a good memory, and since there was basically only one road, he soon came upon the familiar high-walled courtyard and said, "We're here." The 2 village officials breathed a sigh of relief. This place wasn't under their jurisdiction. The police officers put away their smiles and became serious. Because they were assisting an international organization in this case, the County Public Security Bureau had granted them special permission to carry firearms, a fact that made the 4 officers both nervous and excited. In their small town, cases involving the use of firearms were rare. After Luo Zhangjiang identified himself to the police station, They took the matter seriously. WPSA is no small organization internationally. Among the many animal protection organizations worldwide, it's ranked among the best. The area surrounding the house was quiet. It wasn't located within the main village area, but rather on a road between two villages, with few pedestrians and vehicles. The police officer asked Wang Yongshen, "Director Wang, do you know who lives here?" "No, I don't know." He truly didn't know. Wang Yongshen remembered the people from his own village well, but this place didn't belong to them, and he hadn't noticed the house before when he went to the neighboring village for work. Could the person living inside be a criminal? Seeing the police officer holding his gun, Wang Yongshen's mouth was dry with anxiety, and his voice trembled. An officer knocked on the door and said, "Is anyone there?" No one answered. He continued knocking. "Hello, is anyone there?" A long moment passed before someone responded, asking, "Who is it? Your water pipe outside has burst and water's coming out. Could you please come and take care of it? The road's flooded." Wait, I'll take a look." The moment the gate opened, two police officers, ready to attack, rushed forward and rammed the door open with their bodies. Pointing their guns at the person who came out to open it, they shouted, "Don't move! Don't move!" Yukai had been recording the video, and after seeing the person being subdued, he rushed in too. Seriously? Someone actually dared to do such a thing? In this small courtyard, there were 7 or 8 cages, all holding emaciated black bears, their abdomens pierced with massive plastic tubes, as big as an adult's arm. Even if a needle was stuck in their flesh, they would have grasped and tried to remove it, let alone such a large tube. To prevent the bears from scratching their abdomens, their bodies were shackled with iron shackles, restricting their every movement, leaving them trapped between life and death. The two village officials who followed in were furious, their eyes reddening as they cursed, "That damned bastard's doing. How could he do something so inhumane?" A cool breeze blew over, a pleasant summer breeze, but it was mingled with the stench of thick water and feces, making one nauseous. Yukai suppressed his anger and filmed each of the bears, capturing their tragic expressions. If anyone on Earth today understood these animals best, it would be Yukai. All the animals' affection for Yukai grew. Was it someone manipulating them into being friendly? No, it was a mutual relationship. Only when Yukai maintained his kindness towards the animals would they develop a close bond. By maintaining this kindness over time, Yukai gradually began to sense their reactions, to understand their emotions. These animals all had their own consciousness, their own personalities and preferences. They were meant to live in nature. Why were they being captured and tortured like this? The man who had come to open the door had been stunned by the impact. Upon regaining consciousness, he saw a black muzzle pointed at him. He was so shocked he couldn't control his urge to urinate. Officer, this. There were only the two people in the house, along with some unsold bile. Yukai turned off the video mode and started taking photos, of the two people, of the black bear, of the bile. Putting away his camera, Yukai approached the cage, reaching out to stroke the bear's not-so-soft fur. A village official saw Yukai's movements and, wanting to shout but afraid to scare the bear, whispered, "Reporter, what are you doing? Take your hands out." Yukai obediently removed his hands from the cage, not caring if the bears could understand him. He said, "Don't worry, a doctor will be here soon to help you. Anyone who comes after you is a good person, so cooperate with him." Roar. A weak roar. His emotions were mixed. The last time he felt this way was after seeing an elephant have half its head chopped off. That was in Africa, so far away from China, so far away he could never walk to. But this time, he was filming something in his own country. It was precisely because of this that Yukai felt so bad. Half of what I said to that woman just now was a lie. There will be punishment, but not confiscation of all property. Both of them will go to jail, but the accomplice will only be imprisoned for 5 years at most. Judging from what they said before, they obviously don't understand the severity of what they did. They only know that it was an unfair method. Hearing this, Yukai was both angry and helpless. If you know it's an unfair method, why don't you just not do it? Who gave you the courage and guts to use your ignorance to challenge the bottom line of the country's laws? Are you really that bold? After taking the shots he wanted, Yukai asked to leave. Director Wen quickly volunteered to arrange for someone to come and take Yukai back. Chapter 236 Romance. Shortly after Yukai left, local villagers arrived at the house. The village chief, aware that a reporter was accompanying him on this mission and now that the reporter had departed, was sweating profusely, his tissue soaked with sweat. Meanwhile, Yukai had already returned to Fangshu village on someone else's motorcycle. The driver was a man in his 30s. The director had asked him to pick someone up, and he had come without a word. But upon arrival, he saw police officers with guns drawn. The person he had been asked to pick up was carrying a camera, wearing a hat, and a mask. Were they also from the police station? The thought of this made the 30-year-old man incredibly respectful to Yukai, his Mandarin, tinged with dialect, dripping with honorifics. "Where are you going?" Yukai said, "I'll get off once we get to the village." "Thank you, brother." "Oh, you're welcome, you're so kind." He wanted to take a walk alone to relax. After sending a text message to Luo Zhenggang, Yukai headed for the terraced fields he'd always wanted to visit. It was already late, and the villagers, accustomed to eating and sleeping early, had already returned from the fields. The walk from the village to the terraced field seemed short, but it actually took a long time. Fortunately, Yukai wasn't afraid of walking and had plenty of time. There were actually quite a few fields along the way, but they'd all been abandoned. They were now overgrown with weeds, and the weeds were so thick they looked like they'd been growing for 2 or 3 years. Why not plant crops here? Yukai was puzzled. He certainly thought planting terraced fields on a mountain was a beautiful sight, but wouldn't it be more practical to plant crops nearby? It wasn't possible that everyone would go all the way up the mountain to plant crops just for aesthetics, right? After walking for almost an hour, Yukai's frustration dissipated considerably, and he focused more on the surrounding scenery. Many people travel and see beautiful scenery. But what you don't know is that when captured by a skilled photographer, these views are even more beautiful than what you see, especially after color correction. Yukai excelled in photography, having won awards for his work. Although Yukai never publicly announced this, it was rare for a new photographer in China to win a national photography award for their work. Yukai was also skilled in photo editing. He was once the most trusted editor at a post-production studio. Because Yukai's editing speed and client satisfaction were among the highest in the studio, he earned his boss a fortune, allowing him to buy a new car by the end of the year. He had over 3 million Weibo followers, many of whom were fans of his looks, his novels, and his songs, but even more people followed him because of his travelogues and his exquisite landscape paintings. As the sun set, Yukai finally reached the foot of the mountain. Was it worth traveling so far to farm? If it were Yukai, he would say, "It's worth it." Will you regret it? Definitely not. From a distance, the terraced fields looked like crescents, but up close, each crescent was actually a vast paddy field. Walking up the path that borders the paddy fields feels like climbing a mountain. You can feel the slope of the hill. Reaching the highest point of the terraced fields, Yukai looked back at the setting sun. The sunset wasn't glaring, the dusk's light stained the surrounding clouds red. These glowing clouds were reflected by the paddy fields, creating countless clouds of varying sizes, each a bright red, each a different shade. The weeds in the distance seemed to fade as the viewer zoomed out. Where the sun sets, Fangshu village is visible. The romance of modern people might be difficult for ancient people to imagine. Their time didn't allow them to understand why our romance has become so ubiquitous in modern times, a term used to describe love between men and women. But in the eyes of Chinese poets and writers, everything in the world is potentially romantic. Wild animals in the mountains, bamboo forests behind houses, clouds at sunset, terraced fields covering the mountain, a lone figure standing atop them. Imagine this scene. Is it romantic? Does it have anything to do with men and women? Nothing. But it's simply romantic. Yukai scoffed at himself and said, "Sentimental people are just pretentious." But his hands kept moving, finding several angles to capture the stunning sunset. Focusing on the terraced fields, highlighting the setting sun, capturing the clouds. It wasn't until Luo Zhanggang called that Yukai snapped back to reality. "Brother Yi, where are you? The movie starts soon." "How long?" "I'm a bit far away now, over at the terraced fields." Even if Yukai ran back down the mountain at this time, it would take over half an hour, and he wasn't sure if he'd make it. Now, Yukai could hear music coming from the other end of the phone. The warm-up had already begun. "The show starts in half an hour. Is it still in time? How about I pick you up on Teacher Yuli's bike?" "Okay, I'll head to the school. Meet me on the road. And don't get lost. Don't underestimate me, Brother Yi." Perhaps Luo Zhangjiang had learned the outcome of the incident from the police, for he never asked Yukai if he'd been there to capture the footage, only talking about what was happening at school. Yukai put away his phone and walked for more than 10 minutes before Luo Zhangjiang finally arrived on his bike. Luo Zhangjiang rode his motorcycle with style, nodding at Yukai and saying, "Get on." Of course, the ride was more than twice as fast with a car, and they soon arrived at the school. There were a lot of motorcycles and bicycles outside the school. The curtains were already drawn, and music videos of classic songs were playing. Pop songs from over a decade ago still look fresh and relevant. With more than 20 minutes left in the movie, Yukai even took a shower before emerging. Liu Gulbing hadn't seen such a lively scene in a long time, and a bright smile spread across his face. This was exactly what he wanted to see. This was what had inspired him to become a projectionist. As a child, he'd traveled extensively with his father around Weining County, just to see the audience's excited smiles. Yukai leaned over and asked, "Master Liu, how is it?" Liu Gulbing said, "It's excellent, and the equipment is good too. By the way, should I show Mulan or Toy Story? Or something else?" "Mulan? Which Mulan?" Yukai asked. "Of course it's the '98 animated film. I only have older films here. So it was this version that was good." "Okay, let's play Mulan," Yukai nodded. "Then I'll go to the back to watch the movie." "Go ahead." Yukai still had to find the principal to discuss the donation. This was a private donation, and since it was his first time doing this, he had no experience and didn't know the procedures, so he went to the principal to discuss it first. 100,000 yuan might not seem like a lot to Yukai, but in this place, it was a significant donation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Life is released. Although it was an open-air movie, the sound effects were particularly good. As a fan of old movies, Liu Gulbing has invested a lot of money in equipment. Hobbies are actually very expensive, such as playing games, photography, and stamp collecting. It would be a waste of such good equipment to keep it at home without anyone appreciating it. Upstairs in the teaching building, the old principal and Yukai stood in the corridor and looked down at the lively scene on the playground. The principal couldn't remember the last time the playground was so lively. It should be the day of the ribbon-cutting ceremony when the whole primary school was completed. According to Yuli, the old principal is not young anymore, but he actually looks quite young, and he is very humorous and talkative. "Thank you for the arrangement, young man. I attended your lecture yesterday. Are you interested in becoming a teacher at our school? I think these kids really like you." Yukai leaned his hand against the corridor wall, looked down at the children, and said gently, "I like them too." Then, "Forget about being a teacher," Yukai shrugged. "I don't know what to teach. Telling stories from other places is fine, but I can't last long in real combat. That's a shame. Thank you anyway. Many of these kids are seeing a movie for the first time. We'll have them often after the road is repaired." The principal looked at Yukai, unsure of what he meant. "Master Liu and I have agreed to show movies here every other week. Teacher Yu and Teacher Wang are both great teachers, but I think the kids still need more experience." Without waiting for the principal to ask, Yukai continued. "Don't worry about the money. I'll personally donate 100,000 yuan to the school so the children can have more to eat on their plates." "How can that be? We're not short of money. The government gives us a grant every year." The young man looked no more than 25. Earning money wasn't easy for him. His own school wasn't short of food, so there was no need for him to accept Yukai's donation. The children are growing up. They can't just eat potatoes and cabbage every day. The principal fell silent at the mention of these children. He had taught in this place for decades, from a shack to a sprawling whole primary school. Watching these children grow up was his greatest joy. If he had extra money, who would want to feed these children vegetables every day? Yukai spoke with the principal for 20 minutes. He personally donated 100,000 yuan to the whole primary school. The principal would arrange the funds on his own, but he would have to report them to the Education Bureau. Having resolved his matter, Yukai returned to the playground and stood at the back of the crowd. Seeing Yukai return, Luo Zhangjiang asked, "Is your work done?" "Yes," Yukai said. We'll go back tomorrow. Let's treat those police officers to a bite to eat first. They helped us move the equipment so far yesterday. Of course we have to go have a good meal. I'm exhausted these past 2 days. How does they say it? You only regret your legs when you need them. They're so sore now. Short legs? Ha ha ha. Yukai laughed heartily, holding Luo Zhangjiang's shoulders. The movie was at an exciting part, and the crowd erupted in cheers and exclamations. A cheerful and joyful atmosphere filled this small village nestled in the mountains. It was already evening the next day when they left Hong Kong Airport. They found a restaurant near the airport for dinner before returning to their office overlooking Victoria Harbour. Rachel read Yukai's article, fingering the black bear photo on the screen. It's so well written. I knew you'd be the right person to write these. That's what I'm willing to do, but seeing these things so often is really upsetting. I hope it happens less often in the future. If every time Yukai completed a mission for the association, he had to see injured animals, that would be too cruel for him. He was a very sentimental person, and every time he saw them, he would feel pain for a long time. But it was finally over. After a few days in Hong Kong Island, Yukai returned to Chengdu on May 20th. The activities at King Niu still needed some time to prepare, and Yukai didn't want to do anything right now. He was tired, so he wanted to rest at home. He munched on an apple and read a book in a bamboo chair on the balcony. The morning sun wasn't too strong, and it was only at this time of the summer day that one could enjoy basking in the sun. The warm breeze rustled, making the wind chimes on the balcony chime in a pleasant rhythm. The book in his hand had the word Life on the cover. It was the latest issue of Life magazine, featuring Yukai's photography. Meanwhile, countless people opened the magazine together with Yukai. Some people have long-term subscriptions to this magazine, but more people only found out that this book contains articles written by Yukai after seeing his Weibo. Travel magazines are very special books, and few people will specifically subscribe to them. Life magazine has only been around for 2 years, and even fewer people have subscribed to it. I don't know what the magazine owner was thinking, but he actually started a travel magazine in 2018. Yukai's fans haven't heard about Yukai's new works for a long time, and they don't know where to start if they want to support him. After discovering this magazine, they bought it out in just one day. To a certain extent, Yukai's fans have strong purchasing power. In a small town, Wu Linling searched many bookstores and finally bought this magazine near a newly developed real estate development. Most of the buildings here are uninhabited, and the traffic is low. It was because of this that Wu Linling was able to buy this book. She took the book to the cashier and asked, "How much?" The uniformed clerk scanned the code on the back of the magazine and said, 29. After paying, Wu Linling didn't leave. Instead, she found a seat in the bookstore and ordered a latte. Reading is truly enjoyable in a place like this. The bookstore was large, newly built, well-lit and decorated. It was a subsidiary of a large company and had a dedicated reading area. The reading area was like a cafe, with 2 or 3 people working on laptops, and many more quietly reading, the occasional soft clacking of pages. There was no need to open the book. The cover was a photograph by Yukai. Boats were docked on either side of Amsterdam's unique canal. One boat was filled with colorful flowers, and a woman was watering them with a sprinkler. Above the canal was a blue sky with small, fragmented clouds. The houses on either side, mostly with red facades, exuded an exotic atmosphere. This photo highlights the flower boats, the flowers on the water exuding an infinite romance. The lake is clear and bright, the banks are lined with lush trees, and there are numerous arched bridges. The scenery is beautiful and indescribably poetic. It's no wonder that Yukai's fans have strong purchasing power. Those who like this style are mostly the middle class, who are willing to spend a little money to buy what they like. Chapter 238 Program Broadcast. Domestic travel professionals tend to focus on various travel apps, with few truly producing travelogues. Yukai is arguably one of the best. This is certainly true for Yukai's fan base. Each travelogue has its own unique style, and Yukai's is most captivating for its delicate brushstrokes, allowing readers to clearly experience the scenery he witnessed. If this travelogue simply gave Yukai's fan base a boost, then the show A Longing for Life, which aired the following night, thrust him into the public eye. This wasn't Yukai's first television appearance. Last year, Yukai participated in a program called Singer. While the song on Jupiter wasn't a huge hit, it was enough to reveal Yukai's musical talent to many fans of this genre. Upon closer inspection, even last year's hit song Adaya was written by Yukai. Many are anticipating Yukai's entry into the entertainment industry. Even if he doesn't sing, being a handsome young star would be a great option. After all, audiences aren't looking for acting these days. But to the disappointment of many, Yukai disappeared after singing a song, remaining active only on various short video platforms, where he was filmed by many tourists at various scenic spots. Most of the fans who followed Yukai on Weibo in 2020 were attracted by these short video platforms. Regardless of his instrumental playing skills or singing skills, the majority of fans who came from these short video platforms were fans of Yukai's appearance. With the help of the system, the more people follow Yukai, the more talented he is, and the better looking he becomes. A virtuous cycle. For these fans of appearances, travel vlogs, songs, and crafts are all meaningless. So what's most important? Of course, seeing Yukai appear in various videos is the most important thing. Therefore, short videos that capture Yukai generally go viral. But videos of just a few minutes are not enough, and most of the time, you can only capture what Yukai is doing, not hear him speak, and there's absolutely no logic. So many people are looking forward to Yukai appearing on TV. A fan of Yukai, who had become a fan after seeing him playing the flute in the community garden, was waiting for the show in his dorm room with his friends. 4 people were huddled around a 24-inch computer screen. I knew Brother Kai was so handsome, he'd definitely go into the entertainment industry, right? A girl in pajamas said nearby. I thought Yukai was different from those celebrities, but I didn't expect him to just go the popularity route. Sigh, my youth is over. Did Brother Kai say he didn't have time for the entertainment industry? Being on a TV show doesn't mean he's going to debut as a star. Wasn't there a female writer in the 2nd season? A group of people were discussing whether Yukai was really going to be in the entertainment industry. When the timer ran out, the commercials on the screen ended, and the opening credits of Longing for Life appeared. We're together, that's the life we're longing for. This is a breakfast treat for those with weak stomachs, sponsored by Jiangxiang Haogu Rice Porridge. Longing for Life. Shake your WeChat account to participate in interactive games and receive gifts from Jiangxiang Haogu Rice Porridge. Kuai Ishao short videos show a recap of the previous episode. The show began. Yukai was also watching the show on TV at home, reclining on a sofa worth hundreds of thousands of yuan, his 55-inch smart ultra-high-definition TV so clear it felt like a real person was standing right before his eyes. What a difference money makes. This living room, this TV, and this sofa, things Yukai had never dreamed of before. A sofa was like the car he'd bought with a loan. For the past few days, Yukai had been considering buying a car. He had a dedicated parking space in the parking lot downstairs, a gift when he bought his house, but he hadn't even checked it out yet. But then he realized he was always away from home for 10 days or even months, and even the best car would just sit there and rust, so the idea of buying a car was immediately dismissed. The TV started with a previous guest's wake-up call. Many people who had been watching this episode because they had been following Yukai noticed that Kiwei had appeared on the previous episode, so they decided to check out the previous one after watching this one. 20 minutes into the show, Yukai finally appeared. In the car on the way from the airport to the mushroom house, Yukai took the phone the production crew handed him. The screen paused, and Yukai's profile appeared. Traveler, author. Representative works, 2019 travel photography, Chinese paladin, Nirvana in fire. Hello? Mushroom House. Having watched several episodes, Yukai was well aware of the unwritten rules of the Mushroom House. The more difficult the dish a guest ordered, the more work they'd have to do once they arrived, so he ordered 2 more common dishes. Due to his change of tone, the discussion in the Mushroom House continued for a long time without any conclusion. Finally, Wang Lei gave up guessing, believing he'd see it in the end anyway. With a wave of his arm, he said, just tell him to go to the fields and catch his own fish later. Lobsters are tricky to catch, it won't take long with a net. No problem, teacher, he said. Go set up the nets now. We'll check tonight. If there's nothing, we'll collect it tomorrow morning. Morning was the time for rural labor. Kiwei, who had to pay for yesterday's order, was harvesting honey in the yard with teacher He, but the camera primarily focused on Peng Peng and Da Hui, who were fishing. 2 people who don't know how to fish have been groping in the pond for a long time without catching any fish. After 2 or 3 hours, there are only 2 or 3 small fish in the bucket. It's almost enough to make yellow croaker, but it's too small to make the cold fish that the new guests want to eat. There is no deliberate humor in longing for life, but it is this normal life pattern that makes many people like this program. The unintentional humor and embarrassment are the highlights of the program. Yukai got out of the car and walked on the road with his luggage. A clock special effect appeared on the screen, speeding up the time Yukai walked, indicating that Yukai had walked a long distance. Finally, time recovered, and Yukai asked the cameraman, "Did I really not walk that far? Don't lie to me." The camera shook twice. He sped up the video again, and seeing the Yukai in the program logo, he put aside his worries, smiled, and said, "Oh my god, it's finally here." Seeing Yukai on TV was much clearer than watching him live. Every detail of his face was captured. If those big directors saw this shot, they would probably exclaim, "This is the movie face." The movie face looks photogenic in any shot, requiring no lighting, no acting skills, no eyes, no temperament. Just standing there and being filmed. It would be flawless even on a big movie screen. The yard was empty. Wang Lei and He Jiayong were cooking in the kitchen, while Zhang Zixin and Qi Wei were chatting in the living room. Qi Wei was sharing some of her years of experience in the entertainment industry with Zhang Zixin. Hearing a knock on the door, Teacher He put down his chopsticks, walked out, and opened the door. "Teacher He." Yukai called out with a smile. Chapter 239 Questions from Friends. During the Singers Show, Yukai focused solely on singing, with 2 interviews interspersed between segments asking for his opinions on the singers. These he asks, you answer interviews didn't give Yukai the sense of interaction. Now, sitting on the sofa watching his own reality show, he'd laugh at the awkward moments of himself making a fool of himself or others failing to impress, even knowing the plot. Seeing him unpack his own snacks from his suitcase and share them with Teacher He and the others, Yukai also pulled a bag of chips from the snack box under the coffee table. Yukai always brought snacks and candy with him on his travels. Sometimes he shared them with the children, and sometimes, when he was tired, a piece of candy would help him stay awake. Watching him diligently digging bamboo shoots on TV, the other 3 secretly chatted. At the end, they realized that Yukai had dug more bamboo shoots than the 3 of them combined. The 3 were stunned, and the special effects gave them a 50-cent Thunderbolt. Yukai also received a model worker medal, and a work uniform was photoshopped onto the screen. Countless people have adored this show, and Yukai's performance has been nothing short of remarkable. His gentle personality and immense talent have earned him countless golden lines. During dinner, Zhang Zixin asked, "Brother, why do you love traveling?" Yukai replied, "I love traveling because I want to meet a better version of myself." The following response to Qi Wei sparked countless screenshots and social media posts. "I set out from home, driven by a heart forever striving to pursue my dreams, encountering breathtaking scenery, unique people, and historical sites steeped in history. Through each journey, I encounter a long-lost, unwavering warmth. At this moment, the sun is shining, the breeze is gentle, and you are just right." Those watching the live stream were instantly captivated. Holy crap. Fuck. Is this what a writer's talent is? He can just spout flirty sweet nothings? If I had that kind of talent, why would I be single for 20 years? Oh my god. He's handsome and talented, he can write songs, write sweet nothings, write novels, and even farm work and fish. Who wouldn't love someone like that? My husband loves me. Yukai didn't watch the live broadcast. The TV didn't show the comments. However, seeing his handsome performance in the program's well-timed background music, Yukai knew this wave of comments would win him a lot of fans. Yukai didn't know that some people online were calling him talented, and he thought to himself, am I just a show-off because I can't do anything? If anyone knew what Yukai was thinking, they would simply say, you look handsome just standing there. Give us talented people a chance. The next day, Yukai woke up from a nap and stared blankly at the message barrage in the upper right corner. Followers reached 3.2 million, talent +1. Followers reached 3.25 million, talent +1. From over 3 million, his followers had jumped by over 800,000 in a single night, bringing his Weibo followers to nearly 4 million, putting him on par with some celebrities in the entertainment industry. Yukai perked up, groping around for his phone. With so many followers, I should be able to make the Weibo fan rankings, right? If he looked at everyone's Weibo fan rankings, Yukai's 4 million wouldn't be enough, so he searched for the post-90s Weibo fan rankings. The first few he saw froze his smile. 72.47 million, 71.78 million, 71.03 million. He scrolled down a dozen pages, but Yukai's name wasn't even in the top 200. To these celebrities, 4 million followers would only be half a month's worth of followers, right? Tisk tisk, I'm scared. You're the best, right? I shouldn't be asking for trouble. But Yukai didn't care. He didn't need fans. The biggest difference between creators and these celebrities is that creators make their living from their work, while celebrities rely on their fans. It's not that celebrities have no work to offer, but rather that the current environment isn't conducive to producing quality works. In this age of traffic, capital is scrambling to capture every minute of audience time to profit. Even the time spent eating, drinking, or catching the subway can be filled with a flood of information. Capital, relying on traffic, quickly creates IPs to launch viral stars. Once the popularity of a popular star fades, massive resources are poured into launching a new one. Therefore, in this environment, it's difficult for filmmakers to create classic works. Feeling a little discouraged by the celebrity fans on the charts, Yukai woke up and began his day of casual fishing. After a morning workout at home, he headed to a breakfast stall outside the community for millet porridge and eggs, then met up with Sun Xiang to go fishing in the suburban fish pond. Yukai's fishing skills are quite poor, so he generally avoids wild fishing. Fish ponds and farmhouses are Yukai's favorite fishing spots. Within 10 minutes of setting down his rod, a big fish is bound to bite. It's all about whether you can reel it in. Sun Xiang, wearing a hat, sat on Yukai's right. The two hadn't seen each other for a while. Sun Xiang had gained a lot of weight. It seemed that Josie who fed him well every day. Being a little fatter is good, being a little fatter is good. Look at me, I can never gain weight no matter how much I eat. Yukai was worried about his figure. His current weight seemed to be fixed. He would neither grow taller nor gain weight. He even wanted to gain 3 kilograms. The fish pond where the two were was newly opened. It was in a rural village on the edge of Chengdu. There was a road passing through here, and many villagers benefited from it and received a lot of compensation. Although it was a new fish pond, there were still many big fish in it. They were all bought by the boss from all over the place. Sun Xiang put a freshly caught fish into the bucket behind him and looked at the leisurely Yukai. If he hadn't watched Yukai grow up, he wouldn't dare to recognize the confident and handsome Yukai in front of him as his brother. Although Yukai was a little more handsome than him before, it was limited. He was not as handsome as he is now. I'm afraid she's had plastic surgery. Continuing fishing, Sun Xiang chatted, is there anywhere you'd like to go lately? Really? Not lately. I'll go see Saoirse in Ireland if she's free someday. Sun Xiang thought for a moment, then said, didn't you just go out with Saoirse? Really? Yukai turned to look at Sun Xiang in confusion, mentally calculating the time. It had indeed been a while since they'd been together, considering he'd only just returned home. It feels like a long time since we last met. Saoirse had recently agreed to pursue a career in China after graduation, but graduation was still a long way off, and dating a girl from school was a worry. Tisk, Sun Xiang scoffed. Who told you to find a foreign girl? Now you're all set, right? A cross-border relationship. Yukai pondered Sun Xiang's question. Where else could he go if not Ireland? After a good rest, he should definitely continue traveling. Staying home all the time makes people lazy. Then Italy. Yukai said. Sun Xiang scratched his head and said, do you have a particular preference for Europe? Why do you always go to Europe? Why don't you consider visiting America? Is there anything particularly beautiful in America? America is a country of immigrants. Their ancestors were all European. If you want to explore their history, you must go to Europe. If you go to America just to see the scenery, then there's no need. China's scenery is definitely better than America's, and it's very comprehensive. So Yukai didn't want to go to America for the time being. But Sun Xiang was right. He always went to Europe, so this time he had to change his mind. Italy, I'll see you again later. Chapter 240 Hokkaido's Embrace. Gaming is truly addictive. After being killed 30 times in infinite firepower, Yukai berated himself for wasting his time on entertainment. After putting off his travel plans for 2 days, he finally decided to pack up and set off today. There were only 2 places in Asia Yukai most wanted to visit, an island nation in India. But with the temperature outside in India potentially reaching over 40 degrees Celsius these days, it's hard to imagine anyone traveling to India in such weather. So, Yukai chose to visit China's neighboring island nation. These island nations have been deeply influenced by Chinese culture, emulating it in every aspect since ancient times. However, as they have developed their own unique Eastern culture, distinct from that of China. In recent years, the number of Chinese tourists visiting these island nations has increased significantly. Due to China's principle of low-key development, many distant countries still believe China is impoverished. However, the island nations now have the deepest understanding of China of any nation in the world. Why is China still a developing country? Isn't China too low-key? Long live friendship. These are all comments from island nation netizens. Without telling anyone, after getting beaten up playing games that morning, Yukai flew from Shuangliu Airport to Chitose Airport in Hokkaido, an island nation. Hokkaido is part of the island nation. Island nations have lower average temperatures than China, not only due to their longitude and latitude, but also because they're surrounded by the sea. Hence the name island nation. After landing, Yukai descended the escalator, listening to the sweet voice of the flight attendant. At other airports, if you step out of the cabin door, you'll see something like a shuttle bus, but at this airport, the first thing Yukai noticed was a mascot. A sea lion? A walrus? A figure dressed as an animal mascot was greeting passengers who had just disembarked from the plane. They waved their short right hand at the crowd, occasionally jumping up and waving with their legs bent. From the way they jumped, Yukai determined it was a woman. Thank you for your hard work, lovely island girl. Wearing that outfit in the middle of summer must be hot. Come on, let's take it off. Thinking of this, Yukai suddenly noticed something even more bizarre. Why is Hokkaido still a bit cold? It felt like a change of seasons. Discover a new region, island nation, reward. 300,000 yuan, Japanese language reward. Discover a new map, Chitose City, reward. 30,000 yuan, 5 inspirations within 5 days. Unlocking another new language is a cause for celebration. Yukai mastered some Japanese vocabulary back in college. While he couldn't recite the Japanese syllabary by heart, he could still guess the pronunciation of characters by looking at them and thinking about them. Now, in one step, Yukai has mastered standard Kyoto pronunciation. He now speaks the languages of many countries, and is proficient in each, able to communicate and write fluently with the locals. Not counting those lesser-known languages, Yukai speaks Chinese, English, German, French, and Japanese, as well as less commonly used languages like Irish, Dutch, and Tibetan. Although Yukai is a native of China and has a strong sense of belonging to it, his strongest language is English. This is unavoidable, as most of the European countries he frequently visits have English as their official language, leading to numerous rewards for improving his English. Walking through the airport, Yukai noticed the sheer number of mascots. He was curious, but didn't react too strongly. This country was known for its cuteness, and with that thought, everything about the airport made sense. The various slogans and billboards, adorned with Chinese characters, also made Yukai feel a sense of trance. While Japanese has many kanji, they aren't written in simplified Chinese, but in traditional Chinese. Some are even unique to the island nation, invented by the island nation itself. So, if you don't recognize a character, don't worry, they might be their own creation. As Yukai was walking out of the airport alone, someone wearing a cute bear jacket came bouncing up to him and called out in Japanese, "Do you need a hug?" The voice sounded like a cute girl. Yukai, carrying his suitcase, was troubled by the question. He couldn't see their face, but a hug wasn't a problem. The airport mascots weren't just simple mascots, they actually embraced those who were left alone. How nice. Yukai also replied in Japanese, "Of course." They both gave each other a gentle hug, and Yukai patted her on the back and said, "Thank you for the hug. It's okay, handsome, can you leave me your contact information? If we meet next time, then go ahead." Was this work or just a flirtation? She even asked for my number. Continuing to walk out of the airport, Yukai was still thinking about the hug. The animal suit looked thick, but the hug was surprisingly snug. She had a nice figure. Speaking of which, the island nation has a rich entertainment industry, and Yukai really enjoys the customs of various places. So, he'd definitely visit more of them this time. Yukai was in a good mood, and the frustration he'd felt from dying so many times a few hours ago dissipated. His frequent deaths weren't due to his skill. The game had recently introduced an unlimited firepower mode. Even the strongest players would be out of luck after 10 minutes if they didn't play well in the early stages. No matter how impressive you are, one flash attack from someone would kill you. It was a rubbish game. I wasn't going to play that mode anymore. This trip was a hasty one, and Yikai hadn't considered accommodations at all. Only after arriving in Hokkaido did he start searching online for nearby hotels. It was already getting late, and if you waited until after dinner to find a hotel, he wouldn't have enough time. Yikai didn't want to be still without a place to rest until 8 or 9 in the evening. So, he decided to find a place to stay before eating, since he wasn't hungry anyway. While the average temperature in island countries is about 5 degrees lower than in China, Hokkaido is different. The temperature right now is estimated to be less than 15 degrees. Choosing an island country was the right choice, after all, escaping the summer heat. He scrolled through the nearby hotels on his phone. A hot spring hotel surprised Yikai. While the price was a bit high, after reading the hotel's description, he felt like he'd gotten a great deal. It was a hot spring hotel with over 1,200 years of history. In ancient times, and even more than 100 years ago, it was a place reserved for the rich and powerful. The hotel didn't have a star rating, but looking at the pictures and description, Yikai felt the 25,000 yen a night was a steal. This was it. Yikai had no specific goals for this trip. If anything, he'd definitely visit the island nation's geisha, traditional music, and izakayas. A hot spring hotel was also a must. He hadn't checked the temperature in Hokkaido before coming, but he hadn't expected it to be this low. Soaking in a hot spring at night in this weather would surely be an indescribably wonderful experience. Chapter 241 Hi, Beautiful Little Angel. The hot spring hotel was built in the heart of Chito City. It wouldn't be called the heart of the city, as hundreds of years ago, it must have been a relatively remote area. However, with the development of the times and the expansion of the city, the hot spring hotel was gradually enclosed in the bustling city. Yikai had expected a taxi to take him directly to the hotel, but to his surprise, the driver took him to an intersection and said, "Sir, your hotel will be visible if you continue along this pedestrian street." It turned out to be located within a pedestrian street. It wasn't a modern urban street, but rather had the air of an old street, with low-rise wooden houses, the tallest only 3 stories high. Many shops had lanterns emitting a pale yellow glow outside. Wine? Izakaya. In island culture, izakayas are a unique industry. Yikai wasn't yet familiar with this unique industry. Everyone said it was unique, but in reality, it was just a bar. He wanted to check out some of the shops, but the sky was gray and dusk had already arrived. He had just left home in the afternoon, and since he hadn't found a place to stay yet, he probably didn't have time to go sightseeing. He should find a hotel first, have dinner, and then take a good hot spring bath. He had never taken a hot spring bath before. Thinking of this, his pace became faster. Let's go to the izakaya tomorrow. There were not many pedestrians on this street. Many people were wearing neat suits, opening the curtains or wooden doors of the izakayas. They looked like office workers. Yikai thought he had to walk to the end of this road to see the hotel he was going to, but what Yikai didn't expect was that the hotel was right in the middle of this pedestrian street. Yes, right in the middle of the road. When the pedestrian street reached here, it split into 2 roads leading to the left and right, forming an O shape that wrapped around the hotel. This hot spring hotel looked very big from the outside. It was built on a small hill, so of course it was very big. There was a sign on the street, telling pedestrians whether to turn left or right to enter the hot spring hotel. It read, "Right, 50 meters. Turn right, 50 meters. He followed the advice and walked a few steps to the right. He saw a wooden door, resembling a torii archway. Entering it led to a staircase leading up. But Alice, after about a dozen steps, he reached the end, where he saw a pond. Wow! Even before entering the hotel, the sight of the pond captivated Yikai. The pond filled the entire front yard. The path, consisting of lotus leaf-sized stone piers, meandered towards the hotel's main building. The pond didn't end there, but led directly to one of the hotel's rooms. From the center of these piers, you could walk a little to the left. There was a stone pier as tall as a person, with water flowing out from it. The center of the stone pier was recessed, allowing for some water to be stored. Ladles rested on the water, their purpose unclear. There were carvings on the stone, but now they were hard to discern. It was unclear what dynasty they were from, and it was impossible to tell from what era. They stood like works of art above the pond. Of course, the courtyard had other decorative features, and the stone emerging from the water was just one of them. There was no obvious transition between the hotel's wooden building and the pond. The designer's ingenious design blurred the boundary between inside and outside, making the two appear as one inseparable entity. It's hard to imagine this building dates back over 1,000 years. The surroundings of the house were brightly lit. Lanterns abounded, and in the distance, soft, non-glaring lights shone down onto the pond, creating bright ripples on the slowly flowing water. Walking along these stone pillars into the hotel, a man in his 70s straightened his back and smiled as he saw Yukai enter. "Hello, guest," he said. "Yes, hello. My name is Yukai. I just made a reservation online." "Oh, please come in first, guest." There were steps ahead, where dozens of pairs of woolen slippers of the same style were laid out. Below them, about 20 or 30 pairs of shoes were neatly arranged, emitting a faint odor of foot odor. It looked like he was going to change shoes here. As he put them on, Yukai searched for the slippers that would fit him, and was surprised to discover that they were all brand new, which made him breathe a sigh of relief. Yukai felt that shoes were very personal. If they were all used, he'd even walk into the hotel barefoot. Why would slippers be such a hassle? Converted into Chinese currency, a night here would cost over 1,500 yuan. A few pairs of shoes would certainly be a small expense the hotel should be willing to spare. The check-in process was much the same as any other hotel. After completing the formalities, the old man said, "I'll take you there." "Thank you very much." This hotel could only accommodate a small number of guests, and Yukai didn't know why such a hotel wasn't full. Not to mention its 1,000-year history. The architectural design alone would attract a large number of young artists from China. Wanting to stay in a hot spring hotel like this for less than 2,000 yuan? Dream on. The traditional architecture of island nations is beautiful, often shown on television, and the places they live in actually look exactly like what they see on TV. Actually, China's ancient buildings are also beautiful, but they're really hard to come by. At most, they're displayed in movie studios for people to see. 500-year-old houses are tourist attractions, let alone 1,000-year-old hot spring hotels. The old man led Yukai to a room, helped him open the door, and said, "Sir, this is your room. The door at the back leads to the hot springs, about 10 of them. Please make sure to hang up your sign when you enter." At this point, the old man added a humorous note, "Unless you want to share a hot spring with others, we'll provide breakfast tomorrow morning. The restaurant is in the lobby." Hearing about food, Yukai's stomach growled. He rubbed his right hand and said sheepishly, "What's there to eat now? I just arrived in Hokkaido and haven't eaten yet. We're out of fresh ingredients." "Sushi, sir? It's freshly made today." "Of course. Anything was fine." "That's good. Rest up, sir. I'll get it for you." Yukai blinked, thinking, don't I have to go to the restaurant to eat? Watching the old man get him sushi, Yukai was about to go into his room to see what it was like when the door to the room next to Yukai opened. A blonde girl in a nightgown ran out. Then came a beautiful Western woman, then a Western man in his 30s. This was a family that lived in the same room and looked like they were British. When they went out and saw Yukai, the little girl greeted him first. "Hi, handsome big brother." "Hi, beautiful little angel." The little girl's father said, "Did you just arrive too? We are going to take a hot spring bath. How about joining us?" Yukai knew that the together here meant going to the hot springs together, not that everyone would enter the same hot spring pool. "I have to wait a while. I haven't eaten yet." The woman spread her hands and said, "Then you are out of luck. They don't provide ordering service here, but they provide breakfast. There are lobsters and abalone. It's amazing." Chapter 242. Please don't. They were tourists from the UK, arriving in Hokkaido a day earlier than Yukai. They had already been touring the island nation for a week and had just returned from Sapporo. Barely missing any unexpected events, they would only be in Hokkaido for 2 days before returning to the UK. Their route was to start from Kyushu and head north to Hokkaido, but Yukai was taking the opposite route, beginning his journey in Hokkaido. If the flight from Honshu hadn't departed 3 hours later than Hokkaido, perhaps Yukai's first stop would have been Kyoto. It was all fate. After bidding farewell to the family, Yukai entered his room. The room struck Yukai as small, incredibly small, only half the size of a home in China. Yet, within this tiny room, it had all the necessary appliances. A TV, air conditioning, a refrigerator. Yes, there was a compact refrigerator. Inside, he opened it and saw drinks, instant ramen, and other necessities. He'd thought the place had been preserved in its original state from 1,000 years ago, but he hadn't expected the room to be renovated. But come to think of it, what hotel these days doesn't have everyday appliances? Besides, if it had remained unchanged for 1,000 years, it would have become a dilapidated building, dangerous for anyone to live in, let alone a hotel. All I can say is that the general design and courtyard layout remain unchanged, but the rooms have definitely been renovated. There's a bathroom near the door. Opening it reveals a bathtub, a rain shower, and a high-end looking toilet. It's called high-end because the toilet has numerous buttons on one side, corresponding to various functions. With so many things, it might seem cramped, but the hotel's meticulous layout creates a sense of harmony, as if this was the way it was supposed to be. Whether it's the 1,000-year-old courtyard or the modern hotel rooms, both exude a strong, exquisite Japanese architectural style. Guest. An old man stood at the doorway, holding a tray with neatly arranged sushi balls on rectangular porcelain plates. They looked quite appetizing. Yukai had met an islander in Australia who had run a sushi restaurant there for many years, and Yukai had enjoyed the free sushi quite a few times. There were many different types of sushi, some of which looked like just a bowl of rice. The sushi the old man brought Yukai was called maki sushi, the kind you see so often on the market, rice rolled in seaweed, and inside the rice rolled, maybe ham? Yukai gratefully accepted the plate, placing it on the table as he asked, "Are you alone here?" "Of course not, my son and daughter-in-law are here too." "Is the entire family responsible for both management and service?" "That's exhausting." "Perhaps this is the truest form of a family business. No one is employed except immediate family members." 1,000 years. Yukai got goosebumps just thinking about this. He took a bite of the sushi. Oh, it's hawthorn. The rice ball was wrapped in the uniquely flavorful hawthorn, its sour and sweet texture enriching the plain rice ball. And hawthorn has another characteristic, it's very appetizing. Maki sushi comes in large, medium, and thin varieties, and as the name suggests, they're categorized by weight. There were 6 large maki sushi here, and Yukai ate them all by himself. He even examined the last piece carefully before eating it. Because this was the simplest, most technically demanding sushi Yukai had ever tasted, yet the taste was perfectly suited to his taste. It only had 3 ingredients, nori, rice balls, and hawthorn. The hawthorn tasted very similar to the hawthorn snacks you buy at the supermarket, the kind in sticks, but only very similar. The hawthorn they use for sushi is a bit more flavorful than those supermarket snacks. Perhaps I'd try this when I return home, buying some hawthorn from the supermarket and adding it to hot rice fresh from the rice cooker. The nori. Back home, you can skip the nori. After finishing his meal, Yukai looked out the window. It was low, made of wood, no glass. Except for the electrical appliances, everything in this house was made of wood. Sitting cross-legged on the tatami, he could look out at the beautiful courtyard. The moon was already out in the sky, reflecting off the courtyard pond. The water was flowing, and the ripples were particularly charming in the night. Then, a clacking sound came from the courtyard. It was the stone Yukai had seen earlier. When filled with water, the bamboo tube tilts to one side, hitting the other side with a short, crisp sound, as if striking the soul. Picking up the hotel's provided yukata, Yukai headed for the hot springs behind the hotel. Along the way, he passed other guests heading to or returning from the hot springs. The faces of those returning wore relaxed and comfortable expressions, which made Yukai even more excited about what it would feel like to soak in a hot spring. How would it differ from a bathtub? Before he even reached the hot springs, he saw a young woman in a red kimono, bowing repeatedly to the tourists and saying, "Excuse me, please bathe before entering the hot springs." A large sign stood nearby, inscribed in Japanese, Chinese, Korean, and English, "Please bathe before entering the hot springs. Please do not wear any clothing when entering the hot springs. Please do not wash towels in the hot springs, you may place towels on the shore or hold them on your head. Ladies, please tie up your long hair. Please refrain from splashing in the pool. Please refrain from making loud noises, chasing, playing, or splashing water, as this will disturb others. Everyone is welcome at the Shimotsuki Hot Spring Hotel. Note, The hot spring water is quite hot, but that's normal. It's not forbidden, just not allowed. There's a shower room nearby, separate for men and women, but shared, just like the bathrooms at school. If you don't want to shower here, you can shower in the room before coming back. Following the local customs, Yukai showered there as well, then entered the hot spring area from the shower room. A corridor has been built along the mountainside, dividing the hot spring rooms. There are shared areas for men and women, as well as public and single-person baths. Yukai found a single-person bath and put up a sign indicating it was occupied. Even the single-person hot spring pool is quite large, circular, about 2 or 3 square meters in size. It can easily accommodate 3 or 5 people, making it perfect for families. In fact, many visitors come in groups, and solo travelers like Yukai are rare. The room was very hot and had a rather unpleasant odor. The outdoor temperature is very low now. Yukai can't check the temperature without a smartwatch, but he personally feels that it is only around 5 degrees. The island country of Hokkaido is very similar to some places in China. It snows even in summer. What does this have to do with taking a hot spring bath? Of course it is related. Going directly into the hot spring from such a low temperature outside, even a body like Yukai would feel that the water temperature is too high. Fortunately, after having experienced a scalding hot shower, Yukai's body has slightly adapted to this temperature. Sitting by the hot spring pool, he pushed himself with his hands and entered the hot spring. A stream of heat stimulated Yukai's body, causing him to reflexively return to the shore after half of his body had submerged. This water. Is it really not boiling water? Chapter 243 Louis. Before entering the water, Yukai tested the water several times with his feet. The water felt less scalding, so he felt safe to enter. But once he got in, it still felt too hot, so he returned to the surface. After several ins and outs, his body finally adjusted to the temperature. After enduring the initial wave of heat, 5 seconds later, the heat ceased to cause pain, and instead, a strange pleasure welled up within him. Yukai leaned his arms against the pool, closed his eyes, and looked up, letting out an involuntary After adjusting to the temperature, he actually felt incredibly refreshed. Even though the water was still scalding, sometimes people just need a little pain. Such pain can bring a unique thrill. This exhilarating feeling lasted about 3 minutes, after which Yukai calmed down and began his 10-minute sage time. After 3 minutes, his body had fully adjusted to the temperature, and all he could feel was the scalding, warm water enveloping him, a strange feeling of comfort. After soaking for about 15 minutes, Yukai finally emerged from the pool. At that moment, his entire body felt limp. Before coming here, Yukai had been wondering what the difference was between soaking in a hot spring and taking a bath in a tub. Now, Yukai could finally answer that question. The difference between soaking in a hot spring and taking a bath is like going on a date with your crush, while the other is like going on a blind date with someone you've just met. While they're doing the same thing late at night, the feelings they evoke are completely different. While Yukai was pondering bathing late at night, it was still daytime in distant England, the perfect place to work. Their low efficiency doesn't mean they're slow. If they were slow, how could they be considered a developed country? They would have long been surpassed by developing nations with greater ambitions. Book after book rolled off the assembly line and was delivered to the publishing house. The portly editor-in-chief, who had interacted with Yukai before, sat in a chair, opened a newly arrived book, and said to his assistant, "Send 2 copies to Mr. Yi." The newly arrived book still exuded the unique scent of ink, and the thick covers, adorned with a large expanse of purple, evoked a magical atmosphere. After all, purple symbolizes mystery. It was only when Yukai woke up the next day that he discovered the message from the publishing house. They sent it to Yukai's address in Chengdu, but it would take a while to send it from the UK to China, so there was no need to worry. Besides, books are not like other things that are easily damaged. Just leave it there, and pay a little more for the courier when you go back. The hot spring bath last night was really comfortable, but the internet says it's best not to go there every day. After stretching, Yukai yawned and got up from the bed. The courtyard pond outside the window was full of green vitality. The device that made the sound yesterday was struck again, making a dong sound. Apart from anything else, Yukai really loved this yard. After taking a photo and posting it on Weibo, Yukai typed, "I really want to design a house by myself. This is the front yard of the hotel where I stayed last night. What do you think?" Soon there was a reply. Brother Kai is traveling again. MV. NV +1. That's the island nation's Zulu. The bridge over the water and that spring are very Japanese style. Brother Kai, are you in an island nation? Take me on a trip. Brother Kai, please. Kai replied to several messages. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. Kai put down his phone and said, "Who is it?" "Smith, would you like breakfast?" "Oh." Kai put on his yukata and went to open the door. Outside was the kimono-clad woman he had seen outside the hot springs yesterday. According to the old man, this must be his daughter-in-law. Or granddaughter? The darkness had obscured his view yesterday, but today Kai finally got a clear look at the woman's face. She was very young and beautiful. Her skin was fair and her makeup was delicate. She looked younger than him, no older than 25, more likely around 22. A 70-year-old man, his son must be in his 40s or 50s, right? This must be his granddaughter. She gave Kai a soft smile, took a square tray from the cart beside her, bowed to him, took off her shoes, and placed the tray on the table. "This is freshly caught from the sea this morning. It's very fresh. Please enjoy it, sir." "Oh, yes, thank you." On the wooden tray sat 7 or 8 porcelain plates, exquisite blue and white porcelain, containing some beautiful Japanese dishes, including lobster, abalone, and a bowl of exquisite ramen. It was exquisite because it was so few. The dishes were few in number, and despite the large number, you probably wouldn't feel full even after finishing them. But it was morning, so a good meal was all that mattered. Glancing at Kai's handsome face, the girl bowed and withdrew, continuing to serve breakfast to the other guests. Not bad, he hadn't expected breakfast to be served in the rooms. This hotel did have a restaurant, he had noticed it yesterday when the old man had brought Kai over. But if there wasn't a grave la carte service and breakfast was delivered, then there didn't seem to be much use for a restaurant. Anyway, let's eat. I opened the windows wide, letting in the fresh air. As the breeze blew, I began to eat. The abalone was small, perhaps 6 heads, but it was delicious. I don't know how they managed to retain its original flavor without any fishy smell. The ramen broth was incredibly fresh and not spicy, unlike any noodle dish in China. Island broths are usually clear, not simmered for long periods. Instead, they extract the flavor from kelp or fish flakes, adding some vegetables. The bottom is clear and the flavor is mild and delicious. Kai didn't eat more than 60% full. He usually ate a quick breakfast, but this was different. It was his first time to have traditional Japanese food, and it was so delicious that he didn't want to miss a single bite. He cleared every dish. When he checked out, Kai felt a little embarrassed, but it was clear that they didn't care how much you ate. Kai didn't leave immediately. There was a place to sit in the courtyard, so he sat there and stared blankly at the device that caused water to fall and hide another bamboo tube when it was full. A small portion of the spring water gushing out of the stone will pass through a thin bamboo stick and flow into the bamboo tube. When the water cup in the bamboo tube is full, it will fall down due to gravity, allowing the water in the bamboo tube to flow out. Because the water in the bamboo tube has flowed out, the gravity at this time has changed again, and the bamboo tube filled with water will return to its previous state. When it falls, it will hit the other hollow bamboo tube. Dong. A voice said beside Kai. "This is Lu Wei. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 244, First Vlog Shooting. Kai looked in the direction of the voice and found that it was the old man he had met yesterday. Koyama Uchihino's favorite thing to do in the morning is to go to the yard to bask in the sun when the sun comes out, and say good morning to every guest who passes by. When he came here today, he found that the seat where he usually sits was occupied by a handsome young man, who was staring at Zulu in a daze, so he said, "This is Luishi." Luishi, in Chinese, is generally said to be Zulu, which means startled deer. Seeing Kai come back to his senses and look at him, Koyama Uchihino smiled and said as usual, "Good morning, sir." "Oha." Kai also replied, "I've seen something like this on TV before, and I like it very much, but I don't know the name. I didn't expect to see it on the first day I came to the island country." "Lu Wei? What a nice name." Koyama Uchihino also sat down and talked to Yukai about the origin of this thing. Deer guards were originally designed to scare away birds and animals that harm crops. Later, their sound, appreciated by refined scholars, led to their increasing use as decorative ornaments in Japanese gardens. The two, one avid talker and the other a willing listener, chatted for an hour in the courtyard. Yukai was a master of architecture, and to avoid being completely clueless during his travels, he read numerous books on the subject. With his learning ability, he could be considered a beginner in architectural design. While the old man wasn't familiar with foreign architecture, he had his own unique perspective on garden design, explaining the Japanese style to Yukai in plain language. It was getting late, and Yukai checked the time and said, "I must go. It's an honor to have you explain." "No problem, sir. Goodbye." Yukai planned to explore the island nation, staying wherever he went, which was why he had checked out of the hot spring hotel. The best tourist destinations in the island nation were Kyoto and Osaka. Hokkaido couldn't compare. But Yukai always felt that traveling and tourism were different. Traveling should be like what Saoirse and I did in the Netherlands. That's what traveling is all about. And traveling shouldn't just be about visiting tourist attractions. While it's not ascetic as it could be, it's close. Yukai prefers exploring the countryside, the small towns. After descending the hill where the hotel sat, he returned to the commercial street. Whichever way he went, there were countless taverns, or the uniquely Japanese izakayas and ramen shops. And vending machines were everywhere. Anime culture has truly taken root in many parts of the island nation. Not to mention the store signs, just look at the vending machines dotted throughout the streets, all emblazoned with pink anime girls. You might wonder if they were selling action figures or anime cards. But no. Pulling his suitcase closer, Yukai noticed the vending machine in front of him was stocked with the latest iPhones, Nintendo Wii's, motion-sensing game consoles. It was actually a lottery-style vending machine. Written in pink lettering, it read, "One time, 2,000 yen. Checking his wallet, Yukai muttered to himself, "I still have 20,000 yen. Does that mean I can try 10 times? Try my luck." Yukai looked around. He was outside a small supermarket, which housed the vending machine. Besides the lottery machine, there were also snacks and water, and even a slot machine. Yukai looked at the rules. Isn't that gambling? Gambling is prohibited in the island nation. So, are slot machines considered gambling in the island nation? Slot machines didn't interest Yukai. It felt like the more money you had, the more you lost. On the contrary, playing with a few game coins offered a better chance of winning. But the lottery machine was interesting. The prize pool in a machine was fixed, meaning the prize displayed on the machine would always be there. It all depended on whether you could win. Yukai pondered this, opened his suitcase, and pulled out his camera. It was actually quite interesting, if you thought about it. A live stream wouldn't be long enough, so Yukai decided to try his hand at a vlog he'd always wanted to do, capturing some scenery and editing it when he got home. It wouldn't be nice to have an empty personal space on Bilibili. After pressing the record button, Yukai awkwardly pointed the camera at himself. He blinked at the camera, then paused for a moment before saying, "This is my first time doing a vlog, and I'm not used to this kind of filming. I'm currently on a commercial street in Chito City, Hokkaido. See that machine next to me?" Yukai patted the machine and said, "I've seen videos of people using vending machines in Akihabara before, but this is the first time I've seen one like this in real life. Chinese raffles have very small denominations, no business would dare to display a machine like this." Yukai pulled out all the Japanese yen in his wallet and said, "I only have 20,000 yen right now. This machine gives out 2,000 yen at a time, for a total of 500 prizes. Let's try my luck." He pursed his lips and pulled out a 2,000 yen bill and inserted it into the machine. The vending machine suddenly lit up with colorful lights, and the charming, Lolita voices of the Japanese voice actors emanated. "Ready? It's about to begin." At that moment, all 5 buttons on the machine lit up, with numbers from 1 to 100 above them. This must be the remaining prizes in the vending machine. Adding them all up, there were still 346 draws left, meaning someone had already drawn over 100 times. It was unclear if they had won the grand prize. Yukai silently selected one of the prizes and pressed the button. The vending machine beeped, and soon something fell out from the bottom. Reaching in, he pulled out a white box with a label electronic massager. Yukai flipped it over and saw it was a neck massager. Luckily, it wasn't what he'd imagined. He'd thought the Japanese were that open. Although the packaging said it said electronic massager, Yukai had translated it as cervical massager when recording the video. Otherwise, he had no idea what netizens would say. This thing? Is it worth 150 yuan? Yukai was a little skeptical. It looked so cheap, but 100 yuan couldn't buy a cervical massager, could it? Go on. He put the box down, pulled out another 2,000 yen note, and started the lottery. A Japanese brand Bluetooth speaker. Wired headphones. Bluetooth headphones. He'd been quite interested in this at first, but now he was really skeptical about whether this vending machine had anything good. The wired headphones looked nice, so Yukai didn't think it was a big deal, but the Bluetooth headphones looked like something worth only a few dozen yuan. 2,000 yen per draw was roughly equivalent to 130 or 400 yuan in China. What a loss. He kept on drawing. A one-piece chopper figurine, who knew how much it was worth? On his 8th draw, a slightly larger white box finally appeared, its surface devoid of any writing or decoration. Shaking it, a rather heavy sound emanated from within. It felt like a cell phone. Could it be? Yukai's eyes lit up, and he hastily tore open the packaging. Inside was a model, slightly larger than a cell phone. And not just a cell phone model, but a game console model. A game console? A model? Yukai pressed various buttons on the game console, but nothing happened. It felt like a model that couldn't be used. When Yukai was checking the box to see if there was anything else, a card fell out. Chapter 245 Kushiro. Something else? Yukai, having initially thought he'd lost out, quickly picked up the fallen card, silently hoping it wasn't a celebrity's autograph. They were capable of such a thing. Among the items Yukai had drawn earlier was a magazine signed by a Japanese celebrity he didn't recognize. Without the signature, the magazine would be worth at most 9.9, but with a signature, Yukai had no idea how much it was worth. It was useless to him anyway, and he wasn't a celebrity fan. Glancing at the card, a small figure immediately appeared in Yukai's mind, shouting, "Nice." He didn't need to look at the other fancy items, just the words third prize in the center told him he'd earned it all back. He'd won a PS4 Pro. 20,000 yen converted to just over 1,300 Chinese yuan, but a PS4 Pro would have to be worth at least 2,000 or 3,000, right? Yukai had been a bit of a gamer before, so he had some knowledge of these devices. Keep up the good work. In the final 2 rounds of the lottery, Yukai won a pair of brand name wired headphones and a black Butler anime ring. He probably made back his money on the headphones, though he had no use for them. After the draw, Yukai said to the screen, "I had some luck today. I won a third prize. There's only one first, second, and third prize here, so if someone wins, they're gone." He looked at the pile of goods before him. He'd bought all of them for 20,000 yen. But he wouldn't need many of them. Especially the headphones. He won 4. He's still using the original headphones that came with his phone, and they're still working great. He doesn't want to replace them for now. He hasn't worn out a single pair of headphones in all these years. The most common thing he'd do is buy new ones when he can't find them. But since he'd won these things, he had a solution. Yukai said to the camera, "This is my first time uploading a vlog on Bilibili. My expectations aren't high. If you give me over 10,000 likes, I'll give them all away to lucky viewers in the comments." He initially considered keeping the PS4, but then thought, wouldn't it be better to just buy a new one? There were only 10 gifts to begin with, so it would be too stingy to keep them. With that, Yukai turned off the camera. This was just one piece of footage for the video. The opening and ending credits still needed to be remade. Winning the raffle was satisfying, but Yukai looked at the pile of stuff on the floor, feeling a headache. His small suitcase clearly couldn't hold so much. It wasn't much, but 10 items added up to a lot. He stopped shopping. He took the card into the supermarket and redeemed his third prize PS4. He also asked for a large bag to pack all the winnings. He put them on his suitcase and continued walking for more than 10 minutes until he was out of the shopping street. Cars were not allowed on this street, so Yukai had to leave it if he wanted a ride. Despite the city's sparse population, it was quite large. He hailed a taxi at the side of the road. After getting in, Yukai said, "Let's go to the nearest rental car shop, driver." "Okay, please wait." The taxi driver was another gray-haired old man. Why did he say again? The taxi driver who had brought Yukai here from the airport yesterday was also over 60. Are there so many elderly people in the taxi industry? Do they have to go through rigorous training and exams like in the UK? Yukai asked, and the old man smiled and said, it doesn't really require much training. It's very simple. But those young people tend to leave after a short while, so companies prefer us. Is it harder for older people to find jobs, so they change jobs less often? I've heard that island nations have a serious aging population and young people are reluctant to get married, but Yukai hasn't seen that trend yet. There are many young people and couples on the streets. Especially in the area where Yukai had drawn the lottery, many couples were playing catch dolls. Perhaps it's because this place is so remote? So young people here are still open to dating and marriage? Suddenly, his phone rang. Yukai stopped staring out the window and took out his phone. The person who had sent the message to Yukai was a member of the Asian Wildlife Conservation Group. Presumably having seen the photo Yukai had posted on Weibo, he asked directly, "Are you in Chitose City? Is this the Shimotsuki Onsen Hotel?" He actually knew the hotel's name? Had he been there before? He typed back, "Yes, that's the hotel. It's gorgeous. How did you know?" After sending the message, Yukai clicked on the person's profile picture. The address displayed was Kushiro City, an island nation. Turns out he was actually a local. Smiley face, I've stayed here before, so I remember. With nothing else to do, Yukai struck up a conversation with the person, complaining about how incredibly hot Hokkaido's hot springs were, saying they were probably too hot for most people. The person replied, "The Shimotsuki Hotel's hot springs are around 50 degrees Celsius. You need to bathe or shower in very hot water before soaking." Before Yukai could reply, the person continued, "Are you here for a trip? Want to visit Kushiro? The snow's just melted, and the scenery is beautiful. I'm planning to rent a car to go to Sapporo." Kushiro, is that the one with the wetland park? Kushiro City is the island nation's largest wetland park. Compared to the one downstairs from Yukai's hometown, the Kushiro Wetland Park could almost be called a grassland. "Yes, that Kushiro. Wanna come?" Yukai said without much thought, "Sure. I'll rent a car and come straight over." Originally, Yukai had planned to explore the small towns of Hokkaido to find traditional shrines and shrine maidens before heading to Sapporo, the island's administrative center. But then he thought, a visit to the island's largest wetland park wouldn't be a bad idea. And wouldn't there be traditional shrines there? Don't ask why Yukai was so eager to see a shrine. If you ask, it's because he loves Midayamazu Mitsuha, and if you ask again, it's because of Kikayo from Inuyasha. So, it wasn't the shrines Yukai wanted to see, but the shrine maidens in the island's shrines. After driving steadily for more than 10 minutes, the elderly driver parked the car outside a well-known local car rental shop. Yukai asked the manager and discovered that the shop had rental locations all over the island. It was probably as influential as the Shenzhou car rental in China. After choosing a car and paying the deposit, Yukai drove alone to Kushiro City, Hokkaido. Don't be fooled by the island nation's small size, with Hokkaido being just one of its 4 islands. It might be tempting to assume Chitose and Kushiro are close, a quick drive. But that's not the case. The island nation borders China. We often see the vast expanse of our homeland, and we tend to think it's nothing special, no bigger than a province. However, the island nation's land area exceeds that of many Western countries, even larger than the United Kingdom. Driving from Yukai's location, even on the fastest road, would take over 3 hours to reach Kushiro. Chapter 246 The Crane Researcher. The success of the Kyoto metropolitan area has furthered the island nation's goal of establishing a large metropolitan area. Even the lesser-known city of Chitose is large, and its relatively small number of high-rise buildings makes the city's area even larger. After a long drive out of Chitose, Yukai was greeted by endless fields. The island nation is mountainous, with few plains. Perhaps for this reason, the plains have been utilized. After an hour's drive along the road lined with fields, all he saw were neatly arranged fields. It turns out the island nation has so much farmland. Verdant crops stood neatly in the fields, as if meticulously trimmed by a gardener, all the same size and height, like a giant's hair, a flat top, dyed green. Yukai chuckled and continued driving his rented car towards Kushiro. Along the way, Yukai could see the faint side of snow-capped peaks in the distance. The temperature grew colder and colder, and he couldn't imagine how cold the winters here would be. After driving through a section of town, Yukai had some omelette rice and sake, arriving in Kushiro City around 2 p.m. It was getting even colder. Driving, Yukai rubbed his hands and parked outside a clothing store. Yukai had spent all his Japanese yen on a lottery, so he had to pay with his Union Pay card. The woman helping him choose clothes only then realized he wasn't Japanese. Are you Chinese? Yes, I didn't realize. You speak Japanese so well. I can't believe you're Chinese. Sir, we have other styles here that I think would suit you. Would you like to try some more? No. Yukai's figure suited everything, even a simple work uniform could make him look like a supermodel. So, when buying clothes, Yukai simply needed to find comfort in them. Thanks to the traditional Chinese painting techniques gifted by the system, Yukai had a good understanding of color gradation, so he could create eye-catching outfits on his own without needing to be told what to wear by a salesperson. Wearing a faux fleece denim jacket, Yukai finally felt a bit warmer. He then sent a message to his colleague from the island nation. A group of students, playing and joking, passed by Yukai, and his gaze involuntarily drifted to the girls in their school uniforms. Youthful beauty aside, the unique charm of the uniforms aside, Yukai was primarily drawn to the girls' exposed, jade-like calves. Aren't they cold? One of the girls, seemingly aware of someone's gaze, glanced back fiercely, but her expression froze when she saw Yukai. Why was she suddenly no longer angry? The girl smiled shyly. This embarrassed Yukai, realizing his earlier behavior had been quite rude. But who in China these days hasn't watched a few episodes of anime from the island nation? So, suddenly encountering such an anime-themed scene in real life, Yukai felt a sudden shift in perspective, a feeling of entering a second dimension. He froze as he looked at the girls. Of course, the uniforms were indeed quite attractive. If only school uniforms like these were popular in China. A thought suddenly crossed Yukai's mind. But he was already past school age, so even if such uniforms were promoted, it wouldn't matter to him. But if he had children, would he like such clothing? If he had a daughter, she'd probably be vehemently opposed, right? Of course, a daughter would prefer a more attractive appearance, but at school, being ordinary wouldn't be a bad thing, as it would prevent her from liking someone today and being liked by someone else tomorrow. Yukai pondered this meaningless thought for a long time until the person sent him a WhatsApp message. I'm here. Where are you? A few minutes later, Yukai saw her. She was a woman, around 40 years old. Yukai was once again struck by how many women there were in this organization, while it was full of men, either veterinarians or zoologists. And many of the veterinarians were women, which was quite impressive. He also wondered if the president was a man or a woman. Yukai's appearance was no secret. He had many photos of himself in his WeChat moments, and a quick search would reveal pictures of him online, from reporters' snaps to screenshots from TV programs. If Yukai were a celebrity, he wouldn't be much of a minor star now. My name is Kojima Emi. Yukai. Yukai shook her hand. In the island nation, one could use their real names. The language and customs here were closely linked to those of China, with many words' pronunciations adapted directly from ancient Chinese. Kojima Emi was also wearing denim. Perhaps with her age, she'd become more mindful of her temperature and didn't dress as lightly as the younger crowd. I've known you since you posted that news story in February. I never thought you'd visit our country. I travel a lot, when I have free time. Kojima Emi smiled, tossed her hair, and, gazing at the highway in the distance, said to Yukai, Kushiro has something for every traveler. Can I show you my studio? Your studio. Yukai only knew that Kojima Emi was a member of the Wildlife Conservation Society, but the organization was a complex organization, with members from all walks of life. So, Yukai didn't know Kojima Emi's occupation. But he probably had a lot of free time. Yukai initially joined the WPSA simply to secure a valid international travel visa, but most members of the association had different ideas. They truly loved animals and wanted to protect endangered species. Achieving this, and joining the WPSA, required significant time and dedication. Yes, my studio, Kojima Emi explained with a gentle smile. I work in the Kushiro National Wetland Park, researching red-crowned cranes. Red-crowned cranes. Yes, the cranes in the park don't migrate, so I stay in the wetland park to observe them. They're truly beautiful birds. Of course I had to see them. In China, the red-crowned crane is also known as the Xian crane. They appear in every fantasy novel and TV series, giving them a certain air of immortality. Once upon a time, These animals were on the verge of extinction, but recent efforts to protect them have brought them back to life. The greatest threat to the survival of today's precious wildlife isn't natural disasters, but man-made disasters. Rare and valuable animals like these, without human capture and with dedicated protection, can mostly live a comfortable life. The red-crowned crane is one such example. After a brief chat, the two drove towards the wetland park. Yukai really like national parks. The environment in national parks provides excellent protection for the creatures that live there, and after the establishment of a national park, there will be a dedicated conservation team and staff, which is more effective in combating poaching. China currently does not have any national parks, but there have been recent reports that Zhehe province will establish one, but there is still no confirmed information. Chapter 247 Yisang. The scenery visibly widened. A river meandered along, and the road ran along this side. Yukai and his companions drove along this road leading to the wetlands. To the right, a vast forest wafted the fragrance of unknown wildflowers. Across the river, on the other side, another road led to the wetlands, but this time it was a railway. An old iron train blared with its clarion call, smoke billowing from its chimney. This type of train was rare in China, but unexpectedly, one could find one on an island nation. On such a train, one could open the windows without restraint. Sometimes, they did so to trade with the train vendors, selling snacks or something. But here, the biggest advantage of opening the windows was breathing in the pure, fresh air. This train traveled very slowly, making it a perfect opportunity to savor the beauty of the national park during the journey. Yukai remembered that there was a similar railway line in China. Hokkaido is one of the 4 major islands of the island nation, but it only accounts for 5% of the country's total population and is renowned for its nature and wildlife. After driving for a long time with Kojima-emi, the river disappeared into the surrounding trees. On the road, you could see shards of ice, condensed from rain, crackling under the pressure of cars. The ice at the edge of the road couldn't be crushed by the vehicles. It looked thick. In such cold weather, the surrounding trees had become bald, leaving behind extremely tall, bare trunks. Some of the treetops still had snow on them, and yet it was summer. Does it snow here often? Regardless of the season, there was a magical atmosphere here. Yukai felt like he was traveling through Narnia. Kojima-emi's car stopped in an open area in the forest. There was a house here. The architectural style wasn't Japanese, but European, like the cabins in the woods often seen in American TV series. Outside, there were some daily tools, and the 2 cars were parked in the yard. As he got out of the car, Yukai noticed the snow on the roof and remembered the snow on the treetops he had seen on the road. He asked, "Does it snow often here?" Kojima-emi didn't expect Yukai to notice the snow first. "Yes, the weather here is like this. There's snow year-round, and there are only 2 seasons, winter and summer. Summer is very short. So is it summer or winter now? Summer is replacing winter now. We even had a light snow a few days ago, and the air is just right." Kojima-emi walked a few steps into the house. "This is where I work. It's like home, really. Not only could I work here, I could live here my whole life." If Yukai ever decided to find a place to live permanently, the scenery he'd like to see would be similar to this one, but with better weather. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter are all crucial. In spring, you can watch the grass and trees sprout green. In summer, hear the birds chirp and cicadas sing. In autumn, see the crimson leaves fall, and in winter, watch the snow blanket the branches. Summer cicadas and winter snow are all stunning sights. Not far away, there's a bridge, and beneath it flows a stream. Or are they 2 lakes? The bridge connects where the 2 lakes meet, because it's at its narrowest point. It's like an hourglass. I'll take a look around. Kojima-emi nodded. She had invited Yukai over to play, so naturally, she wouldn't restrict him. However, she did warn him, "This is a wetland swamp, so there's a lot of wildlife. Please be careful." "It's okay," Yukai said. He wasn't afraid of wild animals, but rather insects like leeches, mosquitoes, and spiders. These creatures had no brains, so Yukai's cheat wouldn't work on them. It was best if it didn't work at all. Yukai couldn't imagine being surrounded by a swarm of mosquitoes. Ant-Man and the like only existed in movies. Yukai didn't want to be Ant-Man. As for Mosquito Man, that was even scarier. Yukai walked towards the bridge when Kojima-emi's voice came from behind him. "Yi-sang, is there anything you can eat? I'm going to make dinner." Turning around, Yukai shouted, no. He was someone who could even eat African snacks. After a day in the island nation, everything he'd eaten was to Yukai's liking. The wind was strong near the bridge, and Yukai tugged at his collar. There were many trees here, most of them cherry trees. This cold-resistant species is perfectly suited to Hokkaido, but Yukai arrived a few months late and missed the full bloom. The two pools here weren't lakes, but rather shallow. A few grasses, mostly no taller than 50 centimeters, poked out of the water. In the distance, a few birds, cranes, to be more precise, were what Yukai had come to see. Right here? Yukai had assumed he'd have to venture deep into the mountains and forests to see red-crowned cranes, but he wasn't expecting so many cranes right at Kojima Yami's doorstep, treading the water and gracefully foraging for food. Why did the ancient Chinese hold such a fascination with red-crowned cranes, even associating them with immortals? It was because of their graceful posture. Birds have always been less straight than upright, with their buttocks lifted high behind their tails, like ostriches. Or they lack necks, like sparrows. But the red-crowned crane, standing tall, exudes an air of pride. Its head held high, like a proud figure, its sharp eyes gleaming with wisdom comparable to humans. Their bodies are mostly white, with black patches on their tail feathers and necks, and a small red patch on top of their heads, which is the origin of the name red-crowned crane. In Western countries, the red-crowned crane is called Grus japonensis. This word translates to island crane in Chinese. In China, the red-crowned crane is a top totem. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, officials' official attire was decorated with flying birds and running beasts, and one of these birds was the red-crowned crane, second only to the imperial dragon and phoenix. When the West named this bird, China was still practicing a policy of isolation. Westerners only knew China through Guangzhou and the island nation through Nagasaki. The red-crowned crane migrates south from northeastern China, avoiding southern China and wintering in the island nations of Kyushu and Honshu. Therefore, Westerners could only see this animal through the island nation, giving it the name island crane. This is a truly unfortunate fact. This is the Chinese crane, but the most popular name in the West has nothing to do with China. Yukai searched around for a while before realizing his phone and camera were both in the car. He hurried back to look for the camera. Kojima and me came out with a basin of water. Seeing Yukai's hurried figure, she asked in confusion, "Yuseng? What's wrong? There are a lot of red-crowned cranes over there. I'll go get my camera." "You're searching like crazy. I was also very excited to see these birds the first time I came here. Yuseng and I are just like that. But don't worry, tomorrow morning will be the best time to take pictures." Kojima and me had lived here for a long time and knew more about red-crowned cranes than Yukai did. She said morning was the best time to take pictures, and Yukai believed her. But that didn't stop him from taking a few pictures today. If he didn't need them later, he could just save them. Photography is a personal game for the photographer. When playing games, the most important thing is to have fun. Chapter 248 The Last Snow. Kojima and me lives alone here. Yukai learned from their conversation that this seemingly young woman has lived here alone for over 20 years, seemingly having arrived straight out of college to protect the red-crowned crane population. Hearing this, Yukai was filled with awe. This was the backbone of the organization. As one of the nation's leading wildlife scholars, Kojima and me naturally had no shortage of income. Even if she did nothing else, simply lecturing at major universities would earn her a comfortable living for her family. The word family was unfamiliar to Kojima and me. She had none. She had lived alone for decades, without a trace of her parents, having spent half her life like this, and she would continue to do so for the rest of her life. A modest but well-balanced dinner concluded with a conversation between the two. Yukai slept in the guest room. The cottage had 5 rooms, 3 bedrooms, a study, and a collection room. Sometimes, other staff members would come to inspect the red-crowned crane ecosystem and stay for a few days. It was starting to feel more and more like home, but what surprised Yukai even more was the collection room in the little house, filled with photographs. Some had been color-corrected, but many still retained their natural beauty. A red fox cautiously watching humans in the snow, a flock of red-crowned cranes gathered under the night sky, and even photos of bears. Yukai examined them closely. The quality of the work was exceptionally high, far superior to Yukai's, who hadn't even received his second photography award. This already surpassed many professional photographers. "Great. Did you take all these photos?" Of course, Kojima said proudly. She hadn't told Yukai she was a photographer because she wanted to surprise him when he arrived. Of course she was surprised. She had assumed Kojima was just a zoologist, a pioneer in crane conservation. But she hadn't expected her to be a skilled photographer. Have you been taking photos since you were a child? Yukai asked, looking at a photo of cranes being fed. Yes, I've been taking photos since elementary school. Protecting wildlife is a grand goal, but it's not a lifelong passion. Yukai enjoys traveling, but without photography, the joy he brings would be much less. Work and hobbies have always been complementary. Kojima experience working here was a great opportunity to hone her photography skills, and so was Yukai. He's now a skilled photographer of natural landscapes, and his images are far more captivating than his portraits. Yukai stayed in this room for a long time, returning to his own room late at night to rest. Despite the European style of the house, the decor was remarkably Japanese. The door was a sliding door, decorated with a plum blossom in ink painting. The room was sparsely furnished. There was no bed, only a tatami mat on the floor. This arrangement made the room feel strikingly empty. Yukai lay on the tatami, the light emitting a subdued yellow glow. It was a wall lamp, the switch in the center of the room, dangling from a long cord. To turn it off, he sat up, reached out, grasped the cord, and gently pulled it, and the light went out. Perhaps because it's so close to the water, there's more insect chirping. But strangely, insects rarely come in. Yukai constantly smells a scent like incense in the house, perhaps repelling mosquitoes. The chirping of insects is similar to the sound of rain, both very soothing to sleep. Although he sometimes finds them noisy, he drifts off to sleep without realizing it, and his sleep quality is excellent. Yukai is the kind of person whose sleeping habits change based on his surroundings. Once you get used to sleeping in a certain environment, you won't dislike it the second time. Yukai is leaving today and probably won't spend a second night in this room. The temperature is getting colder and colder as time goes by, and the insects are choking on the extremely low temperatures. The insects, thought to have appeared due to the rising temperature, are likely to have a rough night. The temperature plummeted. This was the last drop in temperature, followed by a continuous rise, marking the beginning of Hokkaido's extremely short, yet vibrant summer. That night, Yukai didn't feel the temperature change. The warm quilt blocked out all the cold outside, and sleeping within it seemed to speed up the passage of time, as the few hours of sleep flew by in a flash. In the morning, a well-rested Yukai rose and stretched. The tatami mat wasn't as comfortable as a Simmons mattress. It was a bit hard, but Yukai wasn't picky about sleeping. As long as it was warm, he'd slept comfortably last night. The room was dim, and he'd thought it was still early, but then he noticed a glimmer of light peeking through the cracks in the blinds, indicating daybreak. The moment he emerged from the covers, a cold wind rushed in. Hiss. So cold. He changed into his warmest clothes and opened the closed blinds. It was snowing. Yukai had seen snow before, but it was small, so small that the moment it landed on his hands, you could see the charming little crystals, only to melt into water in the blink of an eye. It was a shame. Heavy snow rarely fell in Chengdu. What people in Chengdu called heavy snow was actually just a small snowfall that had grown thicker, forming a thin layer on the ground or rooftops. That was what Yukai considered heavy snow. But the snow he saw today was different from the ones he had seen before. Heavy snowfall. Yukai understood the meaning of this phrase for the first time in over 20 years. Countless small crystals gathered together loosely, forming feather-like white snowflakes that slowly drifted down. No wonder the snow in some places could cover half a person's height. It turned out that there really was such heavy snow. Pushing open the door, Yukai saw Kojima pouring milk on the table in the living room. There was also breakfast for 2 people. This was the kind of breakfast Yukai had eaten more often when he was in Ireland. Saoirse's specialty was fried eggs and toast. These were the 2 things. Yi sang, "You got up really early. It's time for breakfast." Such a familiar tone. Yukai nodded, went to wash up first, and then came back to sit at the table. While eating breakfast, he was still watching the heavy snow outside. The more he looked, the more he wanted to go out early. So he finished his breakfast in a few bites, holding the camera and said, "Are those red-crowned cranes still in that river? Will the snow freeze with such a heavy snow? Are you in such a hurry?" Kojima put down the cup of milk in her hand. "Yes, don't look at how heavy the snow is, but the temperature is not too cold recently, and the water won't freeze." "Got it." Yukai changed his shoes and rushed out, and took 3 consecutive photos as soon as he opened the door. What he saw was a branch bent by the heavy snow last night, with scattered small flowers on it, and the white snow dotted with dark red flowers. I have been busy recently, and I have to make up for the word count in the next few days. If you find the updates too slow, you can save it for the end of the month. I shamelessly ask for subscriptions. The subscriptions this month are extremely bleak. Chapter 249 Freehand. The bridge from which the red crown cranes could be viewed was very close to the cabin, and it took Yukai only a few minutes to reach the bridge he had stood on the previous day. The snow had stained the red wooden handrails with a pristine white, and from a distance, the bridge looked like something out of an anime. Now, standing on the bridge, a truly heavy snowfall fell, and a thick fog, like clouds descending from the sky, obscured a distant forest. A small flock of red crown cranes foraged in the unfrozen waters. Some, with their 2.5-meter wings spread, uttered raspy calls as they hovered near the surrounding cherry trees. At that moment, Yukai felt like a mortal who had stumbled into fairyland. A solitary cloud, a wild crane, how can it dwell in the human world? Yukai recited a line from a poem, gently raising his camera. Kojima Ami also emerged with her own camera and spotted Yukai standing on the small wooden bridge from a distance. The red of the bridge and the white of the snow created a breathtakingly beautiful scene, needing no color tint. This was a uniquely Eastern charm. She raised the camera and took a picture. In the shot, Yukai held the camera in front of his eyes, holding the long lens with his left hand, and slightly lowered his head to observe something under the bridge. The scenery is beautiful, and the people are beautiful too. Kojima Ami looked at her work and was very satisfied. Yukai didn't talk much in the group chat, but many people working in Asia knew Yukai, not just because of the slogan in February. Among all the members of the WPSA organization, Yukai is perhaps the most well-known celebrity, even more famous than the president of the association. He is versatile, with superb photography skills and excellent writing. Many association members working in Asia follow Yukai's Weibo, and Kojima Ami is one of them. The photographic pictures updated by Yukai from time to time give her a lot of inspiration. So after discovering that Yukai came to Hokkaido, she invited Yukai to visit Kushiro wetlands. Now it seems that her decision was right. Today's heavy snowfall had happened countless times this year, and Kojima Ami had photographed various creatures in these conditions more than once. For those living in Hokkaido, the arrival of heavy snow was commonplace. She had photographed so many creatures, red-crowned cranes, foxes, bears, snow monkeys, but Kojima Ami had never captured such a satisfying portrait. Yukai, tired of standing, shifted his pose and turned to see Kojima Ami walking towards the bridge. "You're here too." "Yes, I took some great photos of you." "Want to see them?" "Me." Yukai's expression shifted from stunned to delighted, then he said bluntly, "Of course I do. This is probably the first time I've appeared in another photo collection." Short videos, of course, weren't considered works of photography. They both wanted to review them on their computers when they got home, so they continued taking photos of the red-crowned cranes. Yukai also spotted a group of small monkeys in the woods. He wondered if they were the snow monkeys they were talking about. Back in Kojima Ami's gallery, they both exported their previous photos, saved the original footage to their own hard drives, and then began to appreciate the work. Yukai's most satisfying work was actually the first shot he took upon arriving at the bridge. The Sony perfectly captured the fog. The distant mist was hazy, and where the red-crowned cranes were feeding and playing, the mist began to flow with their movements, revealing the flowing mist. It was like an ink painting. The cranes soared above, some near and some far away. The closer ones were large and clear, looking at Yukai with unguarded eyes, even wanting to fly towards the camera and play with the photographer. The entire photograph was like a fairyland on Earth. "It's so beautiful," Yi sang. "Are you entering this photo entry? Are there any competitions coming up soon?" Yukai asked. He didn't know much about international photography competitions. There were a few domestic ones, but he wasn't particularly interested. His first entry left Yukai feeling a bit irritated, and he had some issues with the Chinese Photography Association. Before entering the industry, he had thought the association was too formal, but he later discovered that many renowned Chinese photographers didn't participate. Furthermore, the current trend in Chinese photography is still to learn from foreign colors and styles. This greatly diminished the value of domestic competitions, making Yukai even less inclined to participate. Earlier this year, there was a regional competition in Sichuan province, and the association even hinted that Yukai could win, asking him to submit a portfolio. So, it wasn't very interesting, just for fun. Kojima-emi stroked her chin, looking up in thought, and said uncertainly, "There haven't been many competitions lately. But this photo of yours is really good, very oriental and freehand." Her words were full of praise for the piece. Yukai understood what she meant. Kojima-emi wanted to bring oriental-style work to the international stage. Many styles are shared between China and Japan. If Chinese work could be exported, it would be helpful to many photographers in Japan. After 20 minutes of sorting through Yukai's portfolio, Yukai finally came across a photo of himself taken by Kojima-emi. "No wonder," Yukai said with sudden realization. Kojima-emi covered her mouth and chuckled. This photo was exactly like Yukai's crane photos, both using the fog to create a rich, freehand style. White mist is the predominant color, followed by the hazy trees and the vermilion wooden bridge covered in snow. These colors complement Yukai's clothing perfectly. Furthermore, in the work, Yukai holds up his camera, intently photographing something beneath a bridge. Anyone viewing this work would undoubtedly wonder, what's beneath the bridge that captured the photographer's attention? An Eastern person, seeing the overall style of the image, might guess Yukai is photographing cranes, and certainly wouldn't consider crocodiles, elephants, or something else. The styles don't match. Excellent work. Are you bragging about your handsomeness, Yi-san? Kojima-emi said with a smile, feeling elated at the chance to capture such a piece. Of course not. But if someone else had stood on the bridge, this piece probably wouldn't have happened. Yukai's temperament seamlessly blends into the Eastern style, something no one else, could achieve. Yukai remains confident in this. By embracing the traditions of the three Chinese religions, one becomes, in the eyes of the Chinese people, the most perfect Chinese person. A modest gentleman, pure and elegant. Kojima-emi was looking forward to seeing Yukai in a kimono, so she asked, "Yi-san, have you ever worn a kimono, or any of your ancient Chinese clothing?" Not yet. Yukai had seen a Hanfu club at university, a recent movement known as the Hanfu movement among university students. University students were always very enthusiastic about these things. Chapter 250 Cart Flag. Yukai wasn't good at photographing people. Since he'd started in the industry, he'd been shooting landscapes, so his skill with figures was naturally limited. While Yukai knew a lot, his proficiency wasn't the same. Photography could transform an ordinary-looking person into something truly unique. If the model was already handsome, they'd be straight out of fashion magazines. Even without the need for lighting, Yukai's skin was as white as a man's, imperfect even at full zoom. As Kojima-emi was color-correcting the photos, she couldn't believe it was a man's skin. Yukai was using her kitchen to prepare a simple Chinese meal, stir-fried pork and vegetables. The necessary seasonings were all there, but the ingredients were scarce. A skilled cook can't cook without rice, and without the ingredients, Yukai couldn't create a feast. There wasn't really any need to prepare this meal. Kojima-emi herself had a simple meal, while Yukai was leaving after photographing the red crown cranes that morning to explore the nearby village. But hours flew by, as they chatted and gazed at the photos. Kojima-emi recommended basic magazine submissions to Yukai, mostly European and American photography magazines, as well as one from a local island nation. Japanese and Korean styles also stand out in photography. After lunch, Yukai received his toned photos, the one he took of the red crown cranes on the bridge, which he loved. Shortly after lunch, the snow stopped snowing. The sun, warm as it came out, quickly melted the snow on the ground, especially on the branches. Standing outside the cabin, Kojima-emi reassured, "Is Yi-san really okay on her own?" "Don't worry," Yukai said with a smile. His destination wasn't far, so he didn't need to be sent off. A village nearby had lived there for generations, and they had made significant contributions to crane conservation. When the cranes were scarce, they often threw corn kernels into the marsh. This custom still persists, gradually evolving into a tourist attraction, much like feeding pigeons. But the difference is that pigeons aren't shy. You can walk up to them and feed them, and the little creatures will even fly into your hands and eat breadcrumbs. To feed the red-crowned cranes, you can only scatter corn in nearby and wait for them to naturally discover the food. Driving back the same way we came yesterday, We reached a fork in the road. Here, we turned sharply and headed for a village deep in the mountains. Despite the seemingly endless circuit, the village isn't far from Kojima Emi's cabin. It's just a short climb over a hill, and it only takes about 40 minutes. Yesterday's snow had clearly affected the roads, making driving difficult. Sometimes we'd encounter cars coming the other way, and passing them on such narrow roads was a challenge. After stopping and starting all the way, it took over 2 hours before we saw any signs of human habitation. The island nation's anime exports a lot of Japanese culture, and some people mistake the scenes in those anime for the real island nation. Yukai figured it was about 50% real and 50% fake. Even live-action movies can use fake special effects, so what about anime based on drawings? While the breathtaking scenes in anime can be traced back to real life, they've been embellished. This village is no different from any small Chinese village. The difference in the buildings reflects local culture. Hokkaido, with its perennially cold weather and frequent heavy snowfall, also uses mountain-shaped architecture. Most houses are wooden, but some are concrete, not unlike the self-built structures found in small Chinese towns or rural areas. The sunny domes under the eaves and the carp streamers on the flagpoles add a touch of island charm. The custom of displaying carp streamers on Children's Day in Japan stems from the Chinese proverb "carp leaping over the dragon gate." Legend has it that carp gather at the Dragon Gate of the Yellow River every March and April. If they can swim upstream and over the waterfalls of Bishan, they will achieve success and become dragons. Therefore, Japanese people believe carp are a symbol of good luck, and they fly carp streamers to attract the attention of the heavens to protect their children. This probably means hoping their children will become successful, prosperous. The sign on the roadside read in Japanese, "Chatakamachi Shoeki one Chome." In the island country, chome means almost a neighborhood. Seeing an inn, Yukai found a place to get off nearby and walked into the inn with a book. The name of the store was Inn, but there was a small flag next to it that said tea, which meant that you can drink tea here. I wanted to try what the tea of the island country tasted like, and I also wanted to finish reading this book with tea, so I walked into the store. The business in the store was very bad. Apart from Yukai, there seemed to be no customers. The owner was a greasy man in his 40s. He was concentrating on watching the live baseball broadcast on TV and didn't notice Yukai walked in. Smith Marsailles Yukai greeted. "Ah, a guest? What would you like? Do you need a place to stay? I'd like a cup of tea first." "What kind of tea do you have?" "Haha, there's only one kind of tea, bencha. Is that what you need?" At that moment, an excited commentator came from the TV. "Look at that pitch from Huang High School. Oops, missed, strikeout. This tournament is once again won by Huang High School from Hokkaido, and Oku USA maintains its dominance." The boss turned his head to look at the TV, twisting his body slightly so that he was facing Yukai sideways. Hey, Yukai reminded him. If the boss was pouring tea at this moment, wouldn't he know if it spilled? Is baseball more exciting than football? The boss heard Yukai speak and said with a smile, "Excuse me, my son attends Huang High School, and he's on the baseball team." "I see. Congratulations, boss. Did you see him play today?" Yukai was not very familiar with this sport. His most recent memory was watching Doraemon, where the characters often played baseball. He hadn't heard of the sport since he became an adult. "Yes," the boss said happily. He turned around and pointed at the TV for a long time, wanting to wait for his son to appear and tell Yukai who it was, but at this time, commercials started playing. "Hey, this TV station," he said angrily. "Ha, there are always commercials after the exciting parts. All TV stations are like this." Yukai said with a smile. He found the feeling of chasing TV series in the past. Every time he saw a turning point in the plot, he would encounter commercials. Nowadays, advertisers are omnipresent. Even when listening to a song, a few seconds of commercials will be inserted. And in the future, such commercials will only increase, not decrease. Even when reading a novel, you will see commercials at the end of the chapter. Just get used to it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.